Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. What Ifs? So we are back with an interesting movie on What If Naruto Awakened the All-Power of Power Rangers Clan. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. With a heavy grunt, a hand appeared over a rocky edge, grabbing the material firmly as the hand's owner used all their might to pull themselves up and over the edge. All the while, carrying someone on their back, and rain falling down on them. Naruto panted, his face wet with both rain and sweat, as he summoned as much of his leftover strength to pull himself over the edge, while being very careful to not slip and fall the very long drop. One misstep, and the valley of the end will be his end. Tired, no chakra left, and having to carry the Thames heavy damn body. Fuck me, no thanks, not interested. Damn it Fox. How about a little chakra? He heard a scoff. Stop being such a baby, you're almost up anyway. Grumbling under his breath about lazy good-for-nothing bastard foxes, Naruto gave one last heave. And finally managed to pull himself over, finally getting over the edge and back to the forest's level. He fell on his back, uncaring if the unconscious Sasuke rolled off him a bit out. Fact he has to climb all the way up the sides of the valley while carrying the bastard's heavy body while the rainfall on him, almost tempted him to just throw the asshole back over the edge and let him go splat. It's his fault for getting him into this mess in the first place. Huh. And here I thought you never had a killer instinct in your puny body. Shut the fuck up, Kyuubi. I'm starting to like this new dark you, Kit. There's hope for you yet. Naruto ignored the beast as he laid on the soft, wet grass, eyes closed as he enjoyed the rain falling on his face. He decided rest for a while before he had to carry, or drag, he could drag the bastard, by his foot, or hair, Sasuke all the way back to Konoha. And since he was low on chakra, and Kyuubi was too much of an asshole to lend him some. Love you too, Kit. He'll have to walk all the way there. It would only take days to get back. Again, fuck me, still not interested. Grumbling about missing the time when Kyuubi stayed silent, Naruto grunted as he pushed himself up to his feet, groaned as his wounds pulsed in pain, still healing. The most painful being the healing hole on the right side of his chest, with another hole leading to the back, a hole caused by Sasuke shoving an electricity-covered hand through his chest. He'll get him back for that someday. Kami he was tired. Naruto didn't think he has ever been so tired before. Guess that's what happens when you run through Fire Country's massive forest for what feels like hours, have some of your chakra drained by some guy with a mohawk. Do more running in the forest, evade some spider guy, more running, encounter a, admittedly cute, redhead with a mouth that would make a sailor blush, even more running, fight a guy who could use his bones as weapons. Run after your runaway teammate, fight said teammate, have a Chidori go through your chest, use Kyuubi's chakra in some kind of cloak thing, and have to climb up a freaking 100-meter high rock wall. In the rain for Kami's sake. Yeah, guess anyone would be cranky after that. Kyuubi admitted with a nod. All of that sounded exhausting. Good thing he, as a Biju, never had to deal with physical exercise. I need comfort ramen, Naruto muttered, moving to grab his teammate to start dragging him back home. However, before he could grab Sasuke's foot, he heard leaves ruffling. Now, a normal person would ignore this, passing it off as the wind. However, a trained shinobi, even a genin, were taught otherwise. Raising his head, Naruto blinked as three Anbu appeared in front of him and Sasuke, their creepy, yet at the same time, also kind of cool, animal masks staring at him. Naruto began, feeling awkward as the Anbu just stared at him, not saying anything. He raised a hand. Hey guys, glad you came. Think you can give me and the Tem a lift back to the village? Kinda low on chakra. As the silence dragged on, Naruto frowned. The sixth sense he gained from years of pranking ninjas as a kid warning him that something was wrong. Kit, duck. Eyes widening, Naruto didn't question Kyuubi, and immediately dropped, ducking under a grab attempt as one of the Anbu appeared behind him. Low to the ground, Naruto's mind raced, but pushing all questions to the side for now, attempt a swiping kick at the Anbu's legs. Only for said person to jump out of range. The other two Anbu charged at Naruto, reaching out to grab him. However, with the aid of past experience and short stature, Naruto managed to slither out of the way with the agility of a snake, grabbing Sasuke by the shirt as he jumped out of the way. Landing a good distance away, he put Sasuke down, narrowing his eyes at the Anbu. He had to hold back a hiss as his wounds pulsed again. He fought through it. Okay, what the hell? He demanded, only to get silence, making him growl in annoyance. This is payback for pranking you guys years ago, I'm sorry. Okay. In the seal, watching the events through the brat's eyes, Kyuubi narrowed his. Naruto. Something's not right here. Now Naruto knew something was up. Kyuubi never called him by his name. It was always, kid, or, brat. Naruto Uzumaki, the presumably leading Anbu suddenly spoke, taking out a kunai. By the order of Danzo-sama, you were to be captured and taken to him to be the weapon you were meant to be. Naruto tensed. He didn't know who this Danzo guy was, but either way, he was in a bad situation. He wasn't fit for combat at the moment. Not in his condition. Tired, low chakra, injured. If he had a chance in making it out of there in one piece, and not captured, he only had one chance. Think you can spare some chakra now, Fox? Since the situation calls for it. Feeling a rush of energy coursing through his body, Naruto smirked, and made the hand sign for his most favorite technique. Seeing this, the Anbu rushed to try and stop him. However, it was too late. Shadow clone technique. Covered in a thick layer of smoke, Naruto shot out of it, along with several clones, all leaping into the air over the Anbu. Taking out a few of his remaining kunai, he along with his clones chucked them at the Anbu. Of course, being trained elite shinobi, the root Anbu easily blocked the daggers with their own kunai. However, that is what Naruto counted on, as several of the thrown kunais poofed into smoke, revealing to be hanged clones, who attacked the masked men. Unfortunately, only one clone managed to land a lucky punch in, before it and the rest of the attacking clones were taken out with kunais to the neck. Meanwhile, Naruto and his other clones finally landed back on the ground. Shooting his arm out, Naruto commanded his clones to attack. As his clones attacked and distracted the Anbu, the original hung back. He needed to come up with a plan. Kyuubi's chakra charge has refilled his near-empty reserves a bit and had sped up his healing as the hole in his chest was nearly gone, but it still wasn't a perfect health, nor fill. He was mostly running on adrenaline. And he had no doubt that once it runs out, he was going to pass out from exhaustion, leaving him vulnerable to capture. Something both he and Kyuubi agreed they could not allow to happen. Whoever this Danzo guy was, he had to be bad news, so they couldn't allow themselves to fall into his hands. Any ideas, Fox? He mentally asked, watching as his clones began to fall one by one. As proud as he was at the fact that he had been able to outrun Anbu in his younger years after pranking a few, not even Naruto was foolish enough to go toe-to-toe with Anbu. As much as I hate to say it, you need to get us out of here, and fast. Kyuubi growled, angry at having to say that they, more so Naruto, had to run from a fight. As the strongest of his mighty siblings, Kyuubi was never one to run from a fight. Even against Hashirama, he fought to the end, even if said end got him sealed into Mito Uzumaki. However, for being prideful at being the strongest, Kyuubi was by no chance dumb. He knew his container was at his limits and stood no chance against these damn humans. Damn it, Naruto cursed, gritting his teeth as only 3 of his clones remained. Never be. For has he been thankful for his small size, made dodging around easier. I doubt I would get far, especially while carrying Sasuke. Kyuubi growled louder. Forget about the Uchiha, brat. Worry about us. Leave the meatbag and get us as far away from here as possible. How could the brat be worrying about the Uchiha, who pierced his chest mere moments ago? No way, asshole or not, taking Sasuke back to the village is my mission. And I'm finishing it. He shot back, once more placing his hands in a cross seal. Another blanket of smoke covered him, this time bigger and wider than before. Just as the root Anbu finished off the last of his clones. Turning to him, the lead man cursed under his breath as dozens of Narutos shot out of the smoke, leaping into the trees and heading off in different directions. With the root Anbu momentarily distracted, one Naruto grabbed Sasuke's body before leaving. Split up and follow them. The lead man ordered the other two. Danzo Sama W. Ants the Kyuubi Jinchuriki captured and brought to him at all cost. Hi. With that, the men vanished, leaving the empty cliff side with the only sound being heard was the fall of the rain. It was moments later that someone dropped down at the spot. Kakashi Hatake narrowed his eyes as he looked around the small clearing, before looking down at the wrecked valley, frowning at all of the damage and craters. He turned to his small pug of a summon. Pakun. Nodding in understanding, the bandana-wearing small dog sniffed the ground. After a second, he looked at the man. Naruto and Sasuke were just here. But I also smell 3 more scents here. Naruto's scent splits off in different directions, meaning he used his shadow clones. The 3 unknown also split off, following the others. Kakashi narrowed his eyes. Tsunade-sama hadn't sent any more shinobi out from Fire Country to return the members of Sasuke's retrieval team, leaving the job of getting back his 2 students to him. Meaning, these 3 might not be from Konoha. Sound, or maybe the Akatsuki, he wondered. If he could, Paku would shrug, could dogs shrug, at his words. No clue, and that's what worries me. Nodding in agreement, Kakashi created his own shadow clones, as well as summoning his other dogs. Alright, partner up and split up. Follow the scents. One of them has to lead to Naruto and Sasuke. If you find these 3 unknowns, approach with caution. If you find Naruto and or Sasuke, report. He orders. His clones and dogs nodding, they separated. He looked at Pakun. Let's go. The pug nodding, the 2 moved off, following the remaining unpicked trail. Once again, moments later, another presence appeared in the clearing, this time from the ground. As if the ground was water. The figure rose out, their appearance being what looked like a humanoid with giant flytrap for a head. The flytrap opened up, revealing a humanoid chest and head, a color theme divided down the middle, the left side white, and the right side black. It looks like Danzo has started acting up again. The dual-sided being, Zetsu, the Akatsuki spy, stated. Should we follow them? The white side asked. Yes. Who knows, if we're lucky we might be able to snag the Kyuubi container. The black side responded. Are we not supposed to save him for last? White Zetsu asked, head tilted to the side. Black Zetsu shrugged. Never hurts to be prepared. With that, the dual sentient being sank back down into the ground, following after the blonde genin they knew to be the real one. With the real Naruto, he continued hopping through the trees, wondering whether he was being followed, as well if the clone carrying Sasuke managed to get to safety. Focus brat, Kyuubi reminded him. I sense one of those masked attackers on your tail closing in. Sparing a glance over his shoulder, Naruto frowned as he caught a glimpse of the approaching Anbu. And to make things even worse, you're running low on fuel. Can't you give me more of your chakra? He asked, picking up the pace as he sped up. Using any more of my chakra after Just using the chakra cloak for the first time could have dire consequences and may break your body apart, and while I normally wouldn't care whether you die or not, unfortunately the seal connects our souls. So if you die, I perish as well, so you keep reminding me. Naruto grumbled, before seeing an opening in the forest ahead of him. Well, we need to come up with a plan fast, he said as he leapt through the final trees. Landing on the ground, he cursed when he saw that he landed at yet another cliffside. Only this one hovered right over the ocean, with the waves going crazy from the storm. Crashing wildly against the rocks below. Not good. Behind you. Turning around, Naruto groaned as the rude Anbu landed in front of him. It's over, Kyuubi host. You have nowhere to run. You will become Danzo-sama's weapon, as you were always meant to be. Like hell I will, Naruto stated, getting into a defensive stance. He's not going down without a fight. As you wish, the rude Anbu said, unsheathing his sword. Kicking off the ground, he charged at the genin, holding his blade tightly. He will seek to merely knock the boy out, but should he have no choice, Naruto Uzumaki must be eliminated. As ordered by Danzo-sama. With speed the boy should not be able to keep up with. The root member appeared in his guard, sword raised up before he brought it down. Clang. Behind his mask, the man's eyes widened a fraction, breaking his emotionless expression, as his blade was stopped by a kunai blade. However, that was not the cause of his shock, as Hi's eyes locked onto burning red furious ones of Naruto's, as red chakra began to seep out of his skin, covering his form in a cloak, a swaying tail behind him. You will only have a short time, brat. Better use it wisely and get rid of this nuisance. Naruto growled before releasing a roar that pushed the root man back. Steadying himself, the man tsked. This complicates things. Glaring fiercely at the man, hissing as he felt not only the powerful chakra give his body a burning sensation, worse on his lingering wounds, but he could also feel the corrupting energy begin to have an effect on his mind as seconds passed. Kyuubi's right. Need to end this fast. Pushing off the ground, leaving small craters under his feet, Naruto shot at the root Anbu, arms pulled back, kunai at his right grasp. And left hand fingers spread, sharp claws stretching out. Once in range, he crossed his arms in an X slash. Both blade and claws tore into and cut the tree into pieces, the ROT Anbu managing to jump out of the way at the last second. In the air, the man went through hand signs, lifting his mask up slightly to reveal his mouth. Fire release. Great fireball technique. As the large fireball dropped down at his position, Naruto quickly jumped out of the way, causing the fireball to crash down at his former spot, cracking the ground with its force. As he moved back, his chakra tail moved in front of him, deflecting the thrown shuriken like an automatic shield. From the smoke caused by the fireball's crash, the root Anbu shot at Naruto, hands moving in seals. Earth release. Earth dragon bullets. From the ground, a stone dragon's head rose up. Opening its mouth, chunks of dirt shot out at Naruto. Getting low on all fours, Naruto charged forward, zagging around the rocks as they crashed onto the ground, as he ran at his enemy. Unknown to the two, cracks began to appear on the cliff's side, spreading out, slowly moving towards the top. With clone Naruto and unconscious Sasuke. Naruto grumbled about the fact he was the only carrying Sasuke's dead weight as he ran through the forest, heading in the direction he hoped was Konoha. Sure hope I'm going the right way, he muttered, maneuvering through the trees, sticking low to the ground to avoid detection in case those root Anbu jerks were behind him. You better be grateful for saving your life, Tem. He told the unconscious Uchiha. Exclamation mark. Hearing the sound of branches moving, Naruto tensed and quickly ducked behind a tree. Putting Sasuke down, he pressed his back against the tree, hoping it would hide them. The dragging silence seemed to last forever, making Naruto nervous. He glanced around, but didn't see anything. Glancing over his shoulder, he bit his lip. He slowly nudged his head from behind the tree. Eyes widening, he quickly dropped down, as a kunai sailed over his head. Yelping, he tripped, falling backwards. With a wince, he looked up, as one of the root Anbu dropped down in front of him. End of the line, Kyuubi host. You and the Uchiha will come with us and become weapons for Danzo-sama's use. Naruto glared at him, getting up. Like hell I will, he said, unknowingly repeating his creator. He got into a stance, taking out a kunai. His last remaining one. Very well, the man said, taking out his blade. For the glory of Danzo-sama. Die for his true Konoha. He said, charging at Naruto, who tensed. Ga. Naruto blinked, his eyes widening, as Kakashi appeared in front of the Anbu, stopping I am in his tracks with a fist digging into his stomach. Kakashi-sensei. Without looking away from the root member, Kakashi called out to his student. Naruto, keep on going with Sasuke. I'll take care of this. As much as Naruto wanted to say otherwise, he knew an order when he heard one, and from the tone, was not to argue. So with no choice and a nod, he grabbed Sasuke, and leapt up to the trees, heading away. Kakashi stared at the root member as the man jumped away from him, landing back. I see Danzo still keeps his root going. Kakashi Hatake, you will pay for betraying Danzo-sama and root. The man said, holding his sword tightly. Kakashi hummed as he took out a kunai, getting into a stance. If I didn't know any better, I'd swear that sounded like anger in your voice. And here I thought you root were supposed to be emotionless. The man didn't say anything, just charged at Kakashi. Back with original Naruto. Rasengan. From above, Naruto came down a The root Anbu while he was distracted facing multiple shadow clones. The former blue energy sphere took on a more violet shade, its size twice as normal as the Kyuubi's chakra increased its power. Seeing the incoming attack, the root Anbu member kicked a clone away, dispelling it into smoke, before grabbing another one and threw him straight at Naruto, causing him to get hit by the sphere instead. With his blade, the man took out the rest of the clones, before he had to jump out of the way as a large red chakra claw shot out of the airborne smoke towards him. The large claw tore at his former position, the nail-like appendages digging deep into the earth, as connected by a long arm, Naruto was pulled along, landing. Glaring at the Anbu, Naruto winced as he squinted one eye. His vision was slowly turning red, feeling the Kyuubi energy starting to affect his mind. He also started to grow very tired. Sooner or later, he won't be able to keep this up. Your time's almost up, boy. If you have a plan, I highly suggest you do it now. Naruto frowned, but nodded either way. Raising a hand up, he formed another chakra claw, before thrusting it down into the ground, the claw digging into in deep. Behind his mask, the root Anbu member narrowed his eyes at the genin. He had underestimated the Kyuubi host. He had believed the boy had been driven to fatigue from his battle with the Uchiha. Yet somehow the boy managed to still possess enough energy to continue fighting. He also did not expect the host to have such control over the beast's power to utilize so much chakra and state. It would seem we have underestimated the Jinchuriki's lack of control over his beast. I may not have any other choice. This boy could become a threat to Danzo-sama's plans. He must be eliminated, he decided. Just then, his instinct screamed at him. Eyes widening, he leapt into the air, just as, from the ground, a large chakra claw erupted out, its size twice his height. Attempting to grab him, seeing it heading his way, he went through hand seals for a fire jutsu. Breathing out a fireball, he sent it towards the claw to destroy it. However, it did not seem to work as the claw tore through the flames. Having no choice, he replaced himself with a nearby log. Appearing a safe distance away, he shot towards Naruto, seeking to end this battle. However, while on his way, to his shock, more chakra arms appeared from the ground, all trying to grab him, forcing him to move from side to side as he dodged them, continuing his run. Seeing the man coming his way, Naruto growled, even more when he saw a few of the chakra arms evaporate away, his control over them diminishing. Damn it, I'm losing time. Come on, grab him, he commanded, as he watched the Anbu continue to dodge the claws. The ground constantly shook as the claws tore into the dirt, cracks spreading even more. Now's my chance, the root Anbu thought as he managed to get within close distance. Thrusting his sword forward in a stab. Brat, Kyuubi shouted. I got it, Naruto growled, quickly forming a vermilion Rasengan in hand. This is your end, Kyuubi host. The man stated. The name's Naruto Uzumaki, Utem. Naruto shouted, thrusting his Rasengan forward. The deadly swirling mass of energy clashed with the sword's tip, both ends struggling with one another for a moment. Before the blade broke in half. Continuing onward, the sphere crashed against the root Anbu's chest, drilling into the man's chest armor. Waves of energy and wind blasted outward from the impact. The ground around them erupted and broke into large pieces. This is your end, Naruto shouted, pushing his arm. With a silent scream, the root Anbu was sent flying backwards, crashing into the forest behind him. The cliff shook as it started to break, and still on top, Naruto's eyes started to close as the last of his energy left him. That's all I have, he muttered, his consciousness leaving him. Brat, don't you dare fall asleep. Brat, Kyuubi shouted, but it was no use. At that moment, Kakashi and Pakun arrived at the scene. The Nin's visible eye widened as he watched his student fall with the broken cliff pieces down into the ocean waters below. Naruto, he shouted, feeling helpless as his student disappeared into the water. With clone Kakashi falling to his knees, the root Anbu coughed in pain, blood dripping from his mask. Kakashi put away his kunai, approaching the man. It's over. You, and whatever Danzo is planning, is over. The man's breath was rough, his hand covering a gash in his chest as blood seeped out. Weakly, he raised his head, glaring at the Cyclops Jonin through his mask. Danzo. Sama shall. prevail in the end. Konoha will be his. Kakashi narrowed his eye in a glare, standing over the man. Never. Danzo will get his punishment in time. I'll make sure of it. Not. If you are in hell. The man then started going through hand signs. Recognizing them, Kakashi's eye widened. Quickly, he leapt back. For the glory of Danzo-sama. Boom. Landing a safe distance away. Kakashi frowned as he watched the inferno that was the Root Anbu's kamikaze explosion. I'll give Root this, their loyalty to Danzo sure is something. Willing to explode for him. He muttered, sighing. He then got the memories of his fellow clone, who just witnessed the third Root do the same thing. The fact that Danzo tried to capture Naruto and Sasuke is troubling. I better go make sure they are safe, he said, leaping off. A few moments later, he spotted his blonde student resting against a tree, breathing heavily, Sasuke still unconscious near him. Dropping, Naruto jumped. Kakashi-sensei, please tell me that's you, he said, taking caution in case it was the masked man taking his teacher's form. Kakashi held up his hands. It's me, Naruto. Eyeing the man for a moment, Naruto let out a breath and dropped his guard, leaning back against the tree. And that masked man, he asked, taken care of. Now, we should get you and Sasuke back to the village too. Poof. Kakashi's eyes widened as Naruto vanished in a puff of smoke. Shit, that was a clone. Because Naruto's chakra was so heavy and divided evenly amongst his clone. Even the Sharingan had trouble telling them apart. He only prayed his creator found the real one. With real Kakashi, standing at the edge of where the cliff once was, Kakashi could only stare wide-eyed down at the raging waters below as they crashed against the landside. His memory replaying the event of his student falling into said waters, disappearing from his view. Naruto. Earth. Third planet from the sun within the solar star system. 71% water, 29% land. Home to over 7 billion humans and 7 million species of animals. To alien life outside of the solar system, Earth is considered a low-level planet, weak compared to some of the planets holding higher technology or military power. In fact, more than a few sought to conquer Earth either to add to their list of universal conquest, or simply through a desire to show their strength and might. However, not all things are as they appear. For while Earth might only be at its starting pH, ace in true cosmic travel and communication, with the right help, they can be a force to be reckoned with. As for any invaders that wished to attack and conquer Earth, try as they might, they were always foiled time and time again. Thanks to the efforts of the planet's own squad of defenders, one not owned by high military, but under a different force entirely. Wielding incredible power, weapons, and armor, one group of humans, selected by a wise galactic wizard, became champions of truth and justice, defending their home planet from those who wished to do it harm. These brave humans, young in age but strong in heart and spirit, became the first of a long line of color-coded heroes of Earth. The Power Rangers. Time and time again, these brave humans fought and defeated alien monsters sent to attack Earth by the evil space witch, Rita Repulsa, and her minions of darkness. Whether small and many, or single and massive, these Rangers fought with all their might, using the powers granted to them, mighty weapons. And even mightier machines, known as Zords. Machines, which through advanced technology, allow for each to combine together into one, creating a large robotic fighter, known as a Megazord. However, their greatest power was the bond they had with each other, their friendship, sticking together through each battle, and watching each other's backs. Under the wisdom of their mentor, Zordon of Eltar, and their robotic assistant, Alpha 5, Jason, Zack, Billy, Trini, and Kimberly, soon joined by their former brainwashed enemy, friend soon after, Tommy Oliver. These teenagers with attitude managed to defeat Rita, and save their planet. However, that was not to be the end to Earth's peril, as like moths to flames, evil continued to appear to attack the planet. Evil always has different faces to it. Lord Zedd, Rita Repulsa, who returned after her defeat. Rito Revolto, Rita's brother. Master Vile, Rita and Rito's father. King Mondo and his machine empire. Divatox, intergalactic pirate queen of evil, and her pirate crew. Astronema, Dark Princess of Space. Spectre and the United Alliance of Evil. More and more forces of evil appeared to attack Earth and its inhabitants. All with different goals, but with the same results each time. For just as new generations of evil appeared, so have new generations of light and justice. New generations of Power Rangers, be it new members of a team, or a new team altogether, always rose when they were needed. All following the brave actions of those who came before them, even unknowingly. What began with a single team became a passage of power, a legacy of power. Mighty Morphin, Zeo, Turbo, In Space, Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed Rescue, Time Force, Wild Force, Ninja Storm, Dino Thunder, SPD, Mystic Force. Operation Overdrive, Jungle Fury, RPM, and Samurai. Be it on Earth, another planet, another time, a different reality, or heritage through a family, Power Rangers have appeared whenever the need to stop evil was required, which by sticking together, they managed to defeat the bad guy, and save their planet. Even when their powers were lost, and comrades fell, Ara. Inger never gives up hope in making their planet a better and safer place. For once a Ranger, always a Ranger, and as long as Rangers rise and stand, evil will never win. However, sometimes, evil does not stay down for long. The sound of steps and talking clashed with the sounds of shovels digging and rocks breaking as a large group of men and women worked on digging into the ground in AD. Desert terrain somewhere in South America. Well-educated archaeologists worked with strong and skilled workers in digging into the hard ground, seeking to find anything of value and historically preserved. One such archaeologist was one Andrew Hartford, former mentor and creator of the Operation Overdrive Power Rangers, sought to find and retrieve the jewels of the Corona Aurora after he himself accidentally released the evil lava and ice monsters, Molter and Furious respectively, from their slumber when he had found the crown of the gods in one of his expeditions. Through a selection of hand-picked people with great skills, along with his, at the time, secret android son, long story, Mac Hartford, Will Aston, Dax Lowe, Ronnie Robinson, Rose Ortiz, along with their alien friend Tyzon, became the newest generation of Power Rangers. It has been almost 2 years since the defeat of Molter and Furious, and the Corona Aurora was restored and safely returned to Sentinel Knight. The Rangers have returned to their normal lives, and Andrew and Mac, now human thanks to Sentinel Knight using the power of the crown, became a father and son duo, going on archaeology adventures together, finding and retrieving ancient artifacts. This latest one they were hired to help with, Andrew being asked for his top expertise in archaeology, second only to a few in the world. Watching his son dig with a smile on his face, Andrew grew his own. He was really happy for his son's new lease on life. Every second, Mac spent with a smile on his face, full of joy and relief at the fact he was now a real human. And Andrew couldn't be more happy for him. Andrew still held a bit of guilt that he never told his son, and he had to find out the hard way, but was glad Mac forgave him and the two patched things up. A hand on his shoulder knocked him out of his thoughts. "Your boy's a fine digger, Mr. Hartford." Turning around, Andrew saw the man who fired him and the search party's lead. "Thank you, Mr. Neilrod 1, Andrew said, nodding with a smile. He looked back at Mac. Yeah, Mac is strong and agile, not to mention reliable, a great ally and partner for scavenging temples. Mr. Neilrod chuckled, nodding. "No doubt, you must be really proud. Thinking about passing on the hat?" he asked, curious. Andrew chuckled. "Well, I'm not getting younger, so who knows?" Mr. Neilrod laughed, nodding. "While my wife and I never had kids of our own, I do know that the younger generation can surpass the old, and please, call me Fred." Fred said, patting Andrew's shoulder. He walked away, leaving Andrew, who went to join his son. Walking by the worker, he nodded at them, smiling all the while. Entering his main tent, he moved to his desk, where a journal, books, and maps were spread out. Grabbing the map, he sat down on the folding bed, looking at the map which had red X's over it of places where they couldn't find anything. He didn't have any reason or urgence for this scavenger hunt. It was mostly out of curiosity than need. Curiosity of what secrets and items could be found hidden under the planet's surface. Though, if Fred could be honest, finding such artifacts on Earth seemed small compared to finding hidden secrets on other planets across the universe. However, this is my punishment for my crimes, and I'll follow through with it. He thought, a small frown on his face, before it was quickly replaced with a smile of relief. What crimes was he talking about? The complete destruction as well as the enslavement of countless planets. For Fred Neilrod wasn't always the man he was today. He once lived a dreadful past. Another life. Going by another name, a name that strikes fear in hearts of countless life across the universe. The name of Lord Zedd. Even now, the mere mention of that name filled him with endless guilt. It was only thanks to the Power Rangers that his beloved wife Rita got a second chance at life, as a wave of light and goodness removed the evil and wickedness from them, turning them human. However, the minions under them, like Galdar and Rito, were sadly all turned to dust. He prayed to those two, for while his former life may have seen them as idiotic servants, they were always loyal and faithful. He only hoped they found peace in the afterlife. Folding the map, he grabbed his notebook, which contained all of his written thoughts, personal feelings he has written down, ever since he started his new life. Opening the book, Fred smiled widely when he saw a letter inside. At the front, was a stylized, R.R. Rita. A few days after enjoying their new lives, he and Rita willingly turned themselves over to the Galactic Police Force, knowing they had to pay for their past crimes. Surprisingly, the Power Rangers, both the and Space Generations, who were invited to their trial, spoke up for them, stating that even if they should be punished for their past crimes, they should be spared extreme measures. That shocked him more than anything. Spared possible execution. After all the worlds he destroyed, the lives he ruined, he knew more than anyone that such a thing should never be given to him. However, the Rangers stood strong, even going so far as to forgive him. Why? Why would they do such a thing? Such questions have plagued his mind for many years. In the end, he and Rita were given minimal punishments. Fred was to be confined to Earth and live like the race he sought to destroy for 100 years. Rita, on the other hand, was actually forced to serve under her own mother, Lady Fianna, perhaps the most powerful sorceress in the whole universe, and former wife to the galactic warlock, Master Vile. While normally not a bad thing, being forced to do chores such as cleaning a library the size of 2 planets, organizing said library's books, wash 5,000 cauldrons, wash and clean an entire forest of mythical creatures, and much more, seemed more like torture than anything else. Of course, Fianna did not do this to be cruel to her daughter, as no matter her past actions, she still loved Rita dearly. But still, being a mother, she had to punish her daughter. On the bright side, she also took Rita under her wing and taught her everything she knew. Last he heard, Rita has become more powerful than she had ever been, going by the name Mystic Mother, the strongest sorceress in the solar system, and still growing stronger. Opening the letter, Fred reads as R. Ida tells him about her recent adventures, and how she had helped a group of magic-wielding Power Rangers defeat Optimus, a master of dark magic and now former ruler of the underworld. Fred shook his head, as always a bit stunned at how there always seemed to be new Power Rangers popping up everywhere. Recalling how much trouble they used to give his former self, he almost pitied any bad guys that appeared. Almost. Continuing reading the letter, he smiled as Rita expressed how happy she was that she will be arriving on Earth soon to celebrate their 25th anniversary. At the mention of that special day, it made Fred pause, wondering what he could do to make it even more special. As he pondered, his mind flashed back to Mac and Andrew's pride towards him. A child. Single quote. Sadly, he could only count a few times he and Rita showed their absolute love for one another. Said times only happened after their change, considering how he looked like before. He honestly couldn't even remember if Lord Zedd even had being all no skin and muscle. Anyway, for their trials, the two could only be with one another for 1 day a year, and while a few times they spent together, they never really attempted for children, merely taking comfort in being together again. 3. Perhaps it's time we try and make a family, he thought, his smile growing at the thought of him and Rita having kids. Truly starting a new life and forgetting their old ones. Mr. Neilrod. Breaking from his thoughts, Fred looked up at the entrance of the tent, where one of the workers stood. "We found something." Walking out of the tent, Fred followed the man as he was led to where the presumed discovery was. Spotting a gathered group, he approached them. Andrew, who was with the group, was the first to spot him. "Hey, what you guys find?" Fred asked, getting close. Rubbing the back of his head, Andrew gave a shrug. "Truthfully, no clue. It looks like crystals, but they could also be black amber." Cutting through the group, Fred got close, and inside the dug hole, saw black crystals sticking out of the wall. Fred frowned, staring at the crystals, feeling a bad vibe from them. However, for some reason, he felt a calling from them, as if the crystals drew him towards them. He didn't even realize that he had jumped into the hole, moving closer. Andrew saw this, and frowned in concern. "Fred," he called, but didn't get a response. He shared a look with Mac, before he also hopped into the hole. Fred's eyes glazed over as he stood in front of the dark crystals, which even in the shadows of the hole, they gained a violet glint of light. "Fred." Andrew placed a hand on Fred's shoulder, making the man jump, snapping out of his trance. "Fred, you okay?" he asked as the head archaeologist turned to him. Fred stuttered, rubbing the back of his head, glancing at the dark crystals. I'm fine." "You sure?" Fred looked at the crystals, feeling the pull towards them, getting stronger. However, the more part of him wanted to touch the crystals, the more he wanted to get away. The feeling he got from the crystals, it scared him. It filled him with a dreadful feeling, gripping his chest tightly. "Mr. Hartford," an assistant called, getting the man's attention. The assistant held up a phone. "Call for you. I'll be right there," Andrew called back. Turning to Fred, he asked, "Are you sure you're all right, Fred?" Yes, I." Taking a deep breath, Fred stepped away from the crystals. "I should be fine now. No one touches these crystals. They don't feel right," he ordered, unease in his voice. As Andrew went to answer the call, Mac approached Fred. "Everything all right, Mr. Neilrod?" "Just a bad feeling, young man," Fred said, continuing to state at the black crystals. Fred, wincing, Fred gripped the side of his head. Mac saw this, and was worried. "Mr. Neilrod." Fred couldn't hear him, as the sudden voice blocked everything else out. A familiar voice. "Fred. You cannot hold me back forever." Fred's eyes widened, realizing why the voice was so familiar. "No it can't be, Mr. Neilrod," Max asked, grabbing Fred's shoulder. "It is time to stop playing around. The Chaos Crystal, T can turn you back to who you once were." "No, never. I am no longer you. I will never be you again," Fred muttered angrily, trying to drown the voice of him out. "Mr. Neilrod, what are you talking about?" Mac tried to get Fred to snap out of it. Looking over his shoulder to where his dad was, he called out. "Dad, I will no longer be held back. I've been buried long enough. I want out." With Mac distracted, he didn't see Fred's eyes glow red. Shaking Mac's hand off his shoulder, Fred shot at the dark crystal, arm held out. "Mr. Neilrod," Mac shouted, as Fred's hand touched the dark crystal. Suddenly, a bright violet light blinded Mac and everyone around them. Within the light, Fred screamed. Somehow unfazed by the light, he watched in shock and horror, as the hand touching the crystal began to change. His skin turned rough and red, with silver metal covering his fingers and the back of his hand. Realizing what was happening, Fred started to panic. No, stop, someone, help me." The change started traveling up his arm. "Rita." Mac got out of the hole, shielding his eyes from the light, as his father ran towards him. "Mac," he called, blocking the light from hitting his eyes. "What's happening?" "I don't know," Mac responded. "Mr. Neilrod." Suddenly, the light began to die down, getting the two's attention. As the light vanished, the two spotted a figure in the hole. "Fred," Andrew called. "Hee." A dark chuckle came from the figure, who turned around, revealing a monstrous appearance. The figure seemingly had no skin, only having cardiac muscles. Over it, he had silver metal that only covered his pelvis, surrounded his legs, had makeshift boots, had a rib cage-like chest arm, and finally, had a metal face mask with a breather and a wide, red-lensed visor with a horn that ended with a Z. The top of his head had no covering, be it skin or hair, fully revealing a brain. Guess who's back? Lord Zedd has returned. Mac and Andrew tensed. Who is this guy? Where's Mr. Neilrod? Mac asked his dad, who stared at Zedd with wide eyes. It can't be, Andrew muttered. Hee. Zedd chuckled as he looked at his hands. Spreading his arms out, Zedd took a deep breath. Ah, it's so good to back. All the workers and archaeologists shouted in fear at Zedd's appearance, running away. The only ones left were Mac and Andrew. Who are you? Where's Mr. Neilrod? Mac demanded. Turning to the two, Zedd scoffed. That fool is no longer around. I'm in control of this body from now on. As for who I am, I'm Lord Zedd, your new ruler. Holding a hand out, lightning gathered in it, before in a flash, his old staff appeared, the Z-tip glowing with power. Now, Bo, pointing the staff at the two. A blast of lightning shot out. Eyes widening, the father and son braced themselves as the blast struck around them. The force blasted them backwards. Landing on their backs, the two groaned as Zedd jumped out of the hole. I love a good comeback, and this time, no one will stop me. Getting up, Mac and Andrew stared at the being in front of them. Not good, Mac said. You said it, Andrew agreed. He looked at his son. Things could get rocky. Here, reaching into his pocket, he took something out, handing it to Mac. Seeing what it was, Mac's eyes widened. Seeing the overdrive tracker, he looked at his dad. I always keep one with me. Just in case. Take it. Narrowing his eyes in determination, Mac nodded. Grabbing it, he stepped up as Andrew backed away. Zedd stood there, watching curiously. It's morphin' time, Mac called out, holding the morpher up as it spun in his hand. Gripping it, he flipped the phone open. Pressing the morph button, overdrive, accelerate. Holding his arm out, he ran the tracker's wheel along it, spinning the wheel. Holding the tracker out, the phone projected a hologram screen appeared in front of him. Holding the states of his ranger suit and gear. Holding his arms out, his ranger suit formed over him, helmet included. The lights in his helmet flashed on, as his morphing sequence finished. A Power Ranger? Zedd asked, a hint of surprise in his voice, before he chuckled darkly. This is a good day. You will be the first of many rangers I will destroy. We'll see about that, Mac, the Red Overdrive Ranger, stated. He charged at Zedd, throwing a punch. Zedd batted the arm away easily, before slapping his hand against the ranger's chest. The force behind it sent him flying. Whoa! Landing on his feet with a stagger, Mac quickly straightened up. I'm not done yet. Drive Lance, he said, summoning his weapon. All right then, come on. I could use the workout, Zedd said, charging forward. Mac met his charge and clashed his lance against Zedd's. Holding the clash for a moment, Mac grunted as he found it hard to hold against Zedd. And instead felt himself being pushed back. Lifting his leg, he kicked Zedd in the chest, using it as a platform to leap off to land a bit away. Turning his lance to blade mode as a blade slid out from the tip. Mac twirled it around him, before leaping forward. Thrusting his lance, it clashed against Zedd in a shower of sparks. However, the attack did no damage, as Zedd grabbed the tip of the lance. Before tossing it, and Mac away like nothing. Mac landed on his back roughly, but quickly got up and jumped away as Zedd landed where he laid. Try not to die too soon, Ranger. This guy's about as tough as Furious. The Red Ranger muttered. Drive Defender. Taking out his blaster, Mac fired at Zedd, who used his staff to deflect the blasts. Switching it to sword mode, Mac charged. Attacking with both staff and sword. Zedd began deflecting the blows with great skill. Dodging a slash, Zedd slashed at Mac, hitting him across the chest. Gah! Mac cried, before a second slash was delivered, sending him back. Rolling, Mac stopped himself, holding his smoking chest. Is this really all you have, Ranger? Pathetic. Groaning, Mac stood up. I'm not done yet. Putting the Drive Defender away, he held his lance up, spinning it around as the blade began glowing. Stabbing the blade into the ground in front of him, a trail of explosions and power shot out towards Zedd. It hit him, hiding the monster from view in a shower of sparks and dust. Standing straight, Mac watched the dust cloud to see if he had won. Suddenly, a blast shot out of the smoke, hitting Mac. Gah! With an explosion, the red overdrive ranger was blasted backwards. Crashing on the floor, his ranger form vanished. He groaned in pain, too weak to get up. Ha ha ha. The smoke cleared, revealing a perfectly unharmed Zedd. Looks like I'm still as powerful as ever. Mac, Andrew called in worry, coming out of his hiding spot as he ran towards his son. Making it to his side, he looked at his son in concern. Hold still, you're hurt, Mac groaned. At least. Now I know how real pain feels. Zedd chuckled as he approached the two, his staff glowing. Now, to finish you off, I'll hang you helmet on top of my throne room when I take over this planet. He said. Glaring at him, Andrew stood protectively in front of his son. I won't let you hurt my son. Zedd scoffed. Then you shall perish first. He said, holding his staff up. Before he could destroy the two, however, a flash of light appeared in front of the two humans, forcing Zedd to step back. Once the light vanished, a woman in a white robe stood in between him and the humans. Rita, Zedd shouted in surprise. Rita frowned as she started at the form that was her husband. Before glaring, I knew I felt a great disturbance. So, you are back, Zedd. Where is my husband? She demanded. Zedd chuckled. I'm afraid dear old Freddy is gone, and never coming back. I don't believe that. I can still sense him, locked deep within you. I'll free him, I promise you that. Rita proclaimed. We'll see about that, Zedd said, shooting a blast at Rita. Holding her arms out, Rita made a shield that blocked the blast. Lowering it, she countered with her own blast. Holding his staff out, Zedd used it to block the blast. The blast pushed against him. As Zedd struggled to hold on. With an explosion, Zedd was sent back. Loosening her stance, Rita frowned at Zedd as Mac and Andrew stood up behind her. It's over, Zedd. I want my husband back. And I will make sure you are forever sealed away. Growling in anger, Zedd got to his feet, his visor glowing red in anger. Never. I will not be sealed into that pathetic form ever again, he declared, getting up. A violet glow surrounded him and his staff. Mark my words, this universe shall tremble before my power. I shall return. No. Before Rita could stop Zedd, he vanished in a violet flash. Leaving the three in the empty site, Rita frowned in great worry, not only for Zedd's return, but also the danger her husband could be in. Excuse me, Andrew called, getting her attention. She turned to him. Mind explaining what's going on? He asked. Rita sighed. I'm afraid an old evil has returned, perhaps the greatest this world has ever witnessed before. Stronger than ever thanks to the Dark Crystal's power. Not only is this planet in danger, but if Zedd is not stopped soon, the whole universe. Earth. North America. San Angeles, Hartford Mansion. With the grace of a man of his status, the family butler and great friend of Andrew and the Overdrive Rangers, Spencer set down a cup of freshly brewed tea in front of the mystic sorceress and former mistress of evil, Rita Repulsa. Accepting the drink, Rita smiled at the elderly man. Thank you. Spencer simply smiled at the woman, giving her a short bow. He still couldn't believe that sitting in his master, friend's own home, was truly the former Empress of Evil and the old notorious nemesis of Earth's first team of Power Rangers, the mighty Morphin Rangers. When he had first heard tales of the women's attacks, he was but a young man, just in his early working years under the Hartford family. He recalled tales of her various attacks on the small town of Angel Grove. Of the countless monster attacks to occur practically every day of every week throughout almost 3 years, reaching the ears of many throughout the land of the U.S. The first of the hundreds of villainous attacks to come around the world throughout the decades. Seeing her now, calmly sipping her tea, Spencer found it hard to believe she was the very same person from the stories. Glancing at his older master as he and Max sat on the couch in front of where Rita sat, he got a nod, signaling that he could go. Nodding back, Spencer turned and exited the living room. He had other duties to attend to, as well as needing to make sure Norg, their current Yeti resident, wasn't causing a mess where he was currently playing, trusting Mac to be able to protect himself and his father. Should the former villainess try anything? Setting her cup down, Rita raised her gaze up at the father and son. I'm sorry for bringing such trouble to you. I should have realized that having a happy, evil-free life. It would be too good to be true, she said, frowning sadly. Honestly, it was her fault for not realizing that evil such as Lord Zedd could not be so easily destroyed or sealed away. Somehow, someway, at some point in time, evil always returns. Just look at her, when she was still Rita Repulsa. Sure, it took more than 10,000 years, but eventually, she was freed from Zordon's infernal dumpster of a prison, thanks to the unfortunate curiosity of some astronauts. Still, for Freddy to actually find the fabled dark crystal, and on Earth of all places. This planet, I swear. It's fine, really, Andrew said, with Mac nodding in agreement. Rita smiled at them, thanking them. Still, I do have questions to ask, if you wouldn't mind. Like, was that really Lord Zedd? The father asked, a hint of worry in his tone. Sighing, Rita looked down at the cup, nodding. Yes, it was. As I have stated, Lord Zedd has in fact returned. Andrew frowned, leaning back as he let out a heavy, shuddering sigh. That's not good. While he had never seen Lord Zedd personally, he has heard the stories told of the being's ferocious power from those who have. Lord Zedd might be just as much, if not more of a threat than even Furious and Molter. Mac looked at the two, confused. Sorry, but can someone please explain to me what's going on? Who's Lord Zedd? Rita frowned before sighing. I do not blame you for not knowing. No doubt many of your father's generation and further wished to forget such dark times when evil had first appeared on this planet. She said, looking at Andrew, who began recalling his young years when he was in high school and news about giant monster attacks first spread through televisions and radios. And how fear and panic quickly spread throughout the globe when the realization of stuff previously thought to be nothing by fiction in comics and shows, suddenly became a reality. He remembered Faye, feeling scared and horrified at the realization that such creatures actually existed in real life outside of weekend morning cartoons, and that there existed beings capable of wiping out all life on the planet if they chose to. Rita continued, still, I suppose you deserve to know the whole story in order to understand what is happening. To start, my name is Rita Repulsa, and Lord Zedd. Fred Neilrod, as you know him, is my husband. Zedd and I, long ago, used to be villains that have brought terror and destruction all over the universe. At the time, I served under Zedd for many decades to centuries in my father's empire for universal conquest. My father was a dark lord of darkness and evil, known as Master Vile. Being his daughter, you can see that refusal in joining wasn't an option. From a young age, I had a talent for the mystical and magic. A talent my father sought to have properly utilized. I was young, eager to show off, especially to my parents. I have done a lot of things I regret. I brought destruction to many planets and systems in his name. Countless innocents have lost their lives, far too many to put into numbers. Though, most suffered worse. I wish I could undo what I've done, but some things, not even magic can fix. She paused, looking down sadly as memories flashed in her mind, memories of times she deeply regretted in her time as the Empress of Evil. She could just hear the echoing cackle she would do with every victory achieved, uncaring of the death by her hand or order. Andrew and Mac frowned, looking at one another, before turning back to Rita, who took a deep breath to calm herself as she continued her story that must be told. For many galactic years, while my father went off to conquer the rest of the universe, Lord Zedd, who was his second in command at the time, ruled your galaxy in his place through fear. Few tried to oppose him. Fewer lived to tell about it. And with each failed rebellion crushed, Zedd's control grew stronger and stronger, with me rising in ranks. It wasn't until I was sent by Zedd to attack a certain planet, that things changed. Earth, in truth, known only to a few in existence. My attack on Earth years ago was but my second attempt. This surprised the two. Second, Mac asked, getting a shameful nod from the sorceress. Yes, long before my former line of battles with the Power Rangers, I had attempted to attack Earth when the human race was still young and growing. Practically infants. I had everything ready. An army of soldiers and monsters at my command. My magic strong and ready, and troops positioned to attack. Everything was ready to attack and invade the planet for Lord Zedd and my Master Vile, when we encountered strong resistance. Unbeknownst to me, The Earth had someone protecting it. Who? Mac asked, deeply invested in the tale. Rita smiled in remembrance. The first Power Rangers team's wise mentor, Zordon of the planet Eltar. Zordon was a wise and mighty wizard and a fierce warrior of justice, known far and wide throughout the cosmos. A living legend, you could say. At least, he was. Anyway, during the time of Master Vile's reign of conquest, while many worlds would give in to kneel over in fear and defeat before Vile and Zedd, Zordon was not one to bow before evil so easily. Throughout my time in helping Lord Zedd conquer numerous planets following Master Vile's departure to unknown regions of space, I have encountered Zordon and his forces many times. We have clashed so many times. We were practically waging a personal war against each other. Battles have surfaced on countless planets with losses and victories going to either side more times than I can remember. With every battle we've fought with each other, every duel we've faced, every blow, it formed a sort of rivalry between us. Your classic duels between good and evil, who will win? Who will fall? Both strong in magic and resources. Even stronger determination. One could say our war was one of legend and myth. Though, I'd simply just call them like any other battle. It wasn't until I was sent to Earth that, at the time, I decided to change our game. I knew Zordon would follow me to Earth, and our battle would continue, all while the wizard would try and keep it contained so as to not endanger any innocent lives. As he has done in all our previous battles. I knew at the time, Zordon, with his experience being greater than mine, would eventually find a way to achieve victory over me. And due to my arrogance and pride, I could not allow that to happen. So, I came up with a plan. I sent a message to Zordon, declaring my surrender. I told him that I wanted to meet to discuss a ceasefire, a truce. To form an alliance on the side of good, and how I would help him stop Zedd. Ever the kind-hearted man, Zordon believed my words to be genuine and agreed to meet. The time soon came, and I set my trap. Rita paused, an expression of deep guilt on her face. What was the trap? Andrew asked, curious, though having an idea given what he knew. Rita sighed. Zordon believed my words of surrender to be so genuine, he came to the meeting place alone. Wishing to present a stance of non-offense. Unfortunately, his good heart was taken advantage of by my old self. Unguarded and unaware, he was not prepared for when my monsters appeared and held him captive. Using my magic, I banished Zordon out of our dimension, sending him into a place between time and space, where he would be trapped forever. In my prideful victory, I had believed to have defeated Zordon, removing him from ever stopping me or Lord Zedd and Master Vile again. However, I later learned that I was really the one who had underestimated Zordon. For while Zordon fell into my trap, I, in turn, fell into one of his own. Before he was completely sealed away, Zordon imprisoned me and my minions into a space dumpster of all things, before casting us out into the depths of space. She states with a small smirk of praise for the old wizard's own trickery. Mac raised a brow at her. You don't seem angry about being trapped. He pointed out questionably. Rita chuckled softly. Oh, trust me, I was angry. Furious, really. Trapped in a dumpster of all things. With my bumbling, incompetent and foolish minions for more than 10,000 years. Every second was a nightmare for me as they did nothing but give me a never-ending headache. Thankfully, it's all in the past now and I'm a different person. Though sadly, that change didn't happen until long after I was released. It was by some miracle or another that the dumpster flew all the way back to Earth. Crashing onto the moon, where 2 astronauts found it by accident, and driven by curiosity, I was set free. I was angry and bitter for what Zordon had pulled, that the instant I saw Earth. I planned on continuing my invasion. And I'm sure you know the rest. After 10,000 years I was free, and decided to conquer Earth, where I battled Zordon and his chosen group of warriors, the Power Rangers. The mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Mac muttered, a tone of awe in his tone. Even with his limited life experience, Mac knew very much of the forebears of power. The first group of Rangers to ever be known on Earth. Honestly, just the mention of them filled Mac with a sense of childlike wonder. Who wouldn't? Rita smiled, nodding in nostalgia. Yes, teenagers with attitude. Of course, at that time, I was the only one with an attitude. Over and over again, I would come up with some evil plot to defeat the Rangers and take over the planet, and each time, those same teenagers were able to put a stop to my schemes and vanquish monsters. It was both equally frustrating and impressive. There they were, 5 young humans, barely grown adults, with no experience in warfare, pulled into a long-fought conflict they had no prior knowledge of and suddenly given incredible power, and yet they were somehow able to take down and dester ferocious beasts and monsters almost like nothing. Truly, your race is both amazing and terrifying, she said, shaking her head, compared to a vast, endless universe of aliens and hidden threats. The human race can truly show how they can be just as dangerous when the time comes. Andrew nodded, smirking lightly. The exploits of the mighty Morphin Rangers were the stuff of legends throughout the years, being told as grand stories by those who were fortunate enough to witness their battles, passing the knowledge down to the next generation, and spreading even further through the internet. The same was done for the other Ranger teams that followed. Rita continued her story. After weeks of countless defeats, I had decided to unveil my own hidden weapon. To defeat the Rangers with someone of their own skill and power. My own Power Ranger. You had a Ranger, Mac exclaimed, surprised to hear that. Was there actually a thing as evil Rangers? Rita had a guilty, sad smile. Not of my own creation. You see, the source of the Rangers' power came from a mixture of magic and technology. Golden coins, created by a masterful being by the name of Ninjor on a lone planet far off in the Rutabaga system. Using magic, he was able to control and manipulate the discovered Morphin grid, siphoning energy from it into the coins, creating a sort of link, the power coins. These coins not only held a connection to the Morphin grid, they were also embedded with the essence of Earth's mightiest creatures. The dinosaurs, along with crafted morphers, made to siphon and channel the power of the grid, as you very well know. These tools empowered normal humans with untold power and strength. Before I was sealed, I had learned of the creation of the power coins Ninjor created for Zordon as a secret tool of light against Master Vile and Lord Zedd. I was unwilling to allow Zordon to gain such power to defeat those I served, even more against me. I attacked Ninjor's temple in what would become known as the Desert of Despair, in your language. In my lust to obtain the power of the coins, I killed the guardian placed there while Ninjor slung beard while my henchman handled the guards, granting me the chance to grab the coin. However, I soon learned that, for all of Ninjor's idiotic antics and theatrics, he was not as foolish as to not be mindful of the possibility of someone evil trying to take the coins while he was indisposed, and so he separated them all throughout the planet. Perhaps even off-world. As such, I was only able to get one kept in the temple. The dragon coin. Dragon, Mac muttered, thinking that was cool. Dinosaurs and dragons. Man, he felt kind of jealous. It sure beats vehicles. However, Mac and Andrew watched as Rita's expression fell, looking riddled with guilt and self-resentment, her hands clenched and shaking. I wish I could say that that was the end of it. However, the tale of my dark deeds does not end there. And instead, gets worse. Andrew frowned. What happened? Rita let out a heavy sigh, looking down at her reflection in her cup of tea. The power of the Dragon Sea. Oin could only be awoken by one who was pure of heart. Someone like me, who had done countless acts of evil and wickedness, could never have hoped to unleash such power. None of my minions could. No, I needed one pure of heart. Sadly, I knew of such a person. Who? Rita closed her eyes, holding back gathering tears as memories she wished to forever forget came to mind, her hands and cup shaking. My mother, she revealed, surprising the two humans. As I have said, my father, Master Vile, was a dark lord of darkness and evil. However, he wasn't always. He was once a good man, or at least, that's what I was told. My father was once human-like in appearance and kind of heart. Like Freddy, my father had a fascination with untold discoveries and artifacts of the past. In fact, he was once friends with Zordon. It was that friendship that led to him meeting my mother, a practitioner of magic. However, it was my father's fascination with unknown objects that would become his undoing. He came upon an artifact that allowed him and my mother to gaze into the future through visions. At the time, my mother was pregnant, and using the artifact, had a vision of her unborn child, me, growing up to become a powerful sorceress like her. However, while my mother saw a good and kind future, my father saw the opposite. He saw me as a dark witch and enforcer of evil. That wasn't all, however. That artifact was actually infused with the power of Dark Spectre. Dark Spectre? Mac asked, wondering who that was. Of course, with a name like that, they obviously weren't good news. Rita looked at him. Dark Spectre was a dark and malicious being long ago, feared throughout the universe. Most called him the Grand Monarch of Evil. Others even believed him to be the very personification of evil and darkness itself. Before my father came to power, Dark Spectre pretty much ruled the universe. Maybe even the whole dimension itself, as practically nothing was outside of its reach. Though, unlike the common villains your planet knows of, Spectre ruled without the need for minions or soldiers. His very presence, essence, and power were enough to bring fear to all life. To the father and son, Dark Spectre definitely sounded like someone they didn't want to mess with. Thankfully, it sounded like he was no longer around, given Rita's usage of past tense. The object my father found somehow held a fraction of Dark Spectre's energy. It infected my father, twisting his mind and form with dark power. It possessed my father, turning him into a minion of Spectre, with the given order to find a way to bring the being into your universe. It deformed my father, turning him into Master Vile, and granted him the power to accomplish his assignment. Of course, Zordon and his allies tried to stop my father, but were too late to stop the ritual to bring forth Dark Spectre. Ritual? Andrew asked. Once more, Rita let out a heavy, sad sigh. In order to summon a being of ultimate evil, an act of ultimate evil had to be done. That act being the sacrifice of a child of pure goodness of his own blood. She said, making the two stare at her with wide, horrified eyes. Your father tried to sacrifice you. Mac practically shouted, horrified by such an act. Rita closed her eyes, clenching them shut to hold back her tears, covering her mouth to hold back a sob. She shook her head. Not me. My younger twin brother. Rito. There was a reason why her brother resembled a walking skeleton. While the story had been that while young, Rita used a fire-breathing dragon her father gifted her for her birthday to burn down the house she lived in with Rito, in revenge for Ot getting what she really wanted, a planet of her own, burning him alive and melting his skin off. The truth was that Rito was in no actual danger at the time. Thanks to her father using her brought her as a sacrifice to summon Dark Spectre. As a side effect of such dark magic, it embedded Rito with semi-immortality. Her little prank was what led to Rito's skeletal appearance, but it wasn't the first time she had done such things to her brother, given his inability to die unless with greater force. Actually, she didn't even know if Rito could die, given the fact he survived the explosion of the Empower Rangers base. Side note, she wondered how he was doing. She'll have to give him a call when she can. Andrew shook his head, trying to come to terms with what he just heard, as well as trying to hold back his urge to vomit. To willingly murder a child. One's own child, no less. It was unthinkable. Anyway, he exclaimed, clearing his throat. You were talking about your mother? He asked, trying to move the conversation past such dark tellings. Wiping her eyes to clean off the gathering tears, Rita nodded, clearing her throat. Yes. In order to release and awaken the power of the dragon coin, I tricked my mother into appearing before me for the first time since I was young. You see, after my father's act and transformation, my mother grew fearful of him, and with Rito, who after the ritual had been made practically unkillable by dark magic, and I in arms, ran away, hiding from him as she found shelter on another planet. Fearful of what my Fath Master Vile would do should he learn of our whereabouts, with Zordon's aid, worked to shield the three of us from him. It worked. For a few years. Eventually, we were discovered, and Master Vile sent his creatures, the Tengu warriors, to capture us. In order to protect my brother and I, my mother hid us while she led the Tengu away. She faced them, but being tired from days of running, she was sadly overwhelmed and captured to be brought before Master Vile. While I am unsure of what has happened to her, I can only assume that Master Vile tried to gain the location of Rito and I, to no luck. I am well aware of how destructive Vile could be when angered, leading to my mother being killed. She said, much to the father and son's shock and anger, the heart of the evil such a being could commit. It just made their blood boil. Rita frowned. After reuniting with her mother after her trial, Rita tried to learn about what happened to her when she was taken to Master Vile. Angry with herself at the fact that she never, even once, asked her father when she saw him years ago when he visited her former palace. In fact, at the time, she didn't care. It made her so angry with herself and how she acted. She really didn't deserve this second chance given to her. It also brought up the thought that she didn't even know if her father was destroyed by Zordon's energy wave, or was purified like her, Freddy and a few other former villains. Honestly, after all that's happened, she didn't care, and would actually prefer never seeing him again. Rito was one thing, as he at least acted like her brother, like family, and the two loved one another in their own way. Her father, on the other hand, was anything but. Possessed or not, he was no father. Master Vile was an absolute monster. She shook away those thoughts, focusing on the present. Better to just get this over with so she didn't have to keep thinking about her dark past. Anyway, as I said, I needed a pure heart of goodness to awaken the dragon coin. As such, I called upon my mother's spirit. I tricked her, lying about being fearful of Master Vile coming for me, and wanted to use the dragon coin to protect myself. I lied about Zordon being gone, leaving me defenseless. I used my mother's love for me for my own goals, something I'm not too proud of. My mother, after studying the coin, told me that only someone worthy could unlock its power. Sadly, the security measures placed on the coin made it so only someone who needed the coin could use it. Eventually, my mother came to learn that I was tricking her, but by then, it was too late, and I imprisoned her so she couldn't stop me. Of course, she tried to convince me otherwise, believing that I could be redeemed. However, at the time, my heart was already too corrupted with evil to turn away. I could not, would not, divert from my path, and if I could not use the dragon coin's power myself, I could at least make sure whoever was worthy would be placed under my allegiance and control. As such, here Rita paused, taking a deep, shuddering breath as sipped her tea to calm her wrenching heart. In the pursuit of power, I willingly sacrificed my mother, using her own life energy and power to jumpstart the power coin. While it was still unusable to me, the least I could do is ensure that when the time came, it was ready. She said, not looking at the shocked men. She gently placed the cup down on the glass table between them, not wanting to accidentally be. Reek the cup as her hands shook with surging emotions, guilt and self-hatred. She clenched her eyes shut, still able to hear the sound of her mother's screams of pain as she drained her of her energy to power the coin. All the while Rita Repulsa just laughed. The memory broke her heart into pieces. Even more, when she recalled coming to learn that even after what she had done, even after the pain she caused her mother, Fianna still loved her in the end, still believed she could be redeemed, as evidenced when she learned that the Green Ranger's dragon shield was in fact a manifestation of Fianna's love for her. Hoping that whoever came to wield the dragon coin's power, would use that power to protect Rita. Rita cried countless nights and days upon learning that, spending every second begging her mother for forgiveness, who had somehow been revived. Another mystery her mother would not give the answer to. Andrew and Max sat there in silence, trying to comprehend the revealed history and actions of Rita Repulsa. Trying to understand how to feel after all they've learned. Mac tried to say, but couldn't form the words. Rita shook her head. My tale was not told for you to come to hate me, or distrust me. Know that I wholly understand if you do. However, know that I fully regret every action I've done throughout my countless years as the mistress of evil. I regret the actions I have committed against the people of Earth. Against the Power Rangers. Against Tommy Oliver for controlling his mind and using him as my pawn as the Green Ranger. There is really nothing more I could say to make up for what I have done. Even though I have aided the Mystic Rangers against Optimus, that does not redeem me of everything I have done, and still have much to atone for. However, the least I can do, right now, is help save your planet from Lord Zedd's return. She said, determination in her eyes. Andrew gained a serious look. How is Lord Zedd back anyway? I thought he was purified by Zordon's energy wave when he sacrificed himself. Rita raised a brow at him. You seem to know quite a bit about that event, Mr. Hartford, she noted. Andrew gave her a slight smirk. You can thank my old college roommate. I believe he's someone you know. Tommy Oliver, he said, making Rita blink in surprise, before smiling slightly. Talk about grand coincidences, she muttered. Andrew nodded. He didn't come out and just tell me, of course. I came upon his old morpher by chance one day and spoke to him about it. As we were such good pals. He told me everything. It was hard to believe at first. But eventually, I came to trust his word, promising to keep his secret. Rita nodded. I'm glad to hear that Tommy is doing well. At least I hope. Very. Couldn't be happier with the family he made. Rita grew a soft smile hearing that. I'm glad. Rita muttered, happy to know that her former pawn and once enemy was doing well. She shook her head, refocusing. Anywho, I must explain Zedd's return. It is by terrible chance that my husband had come upon the fabled dark crystal. She says. Dark crystal? Mac asked. Rita nodded. In truth, it was merely supposed to be a rumor. A myth. You see, it's been speculated that Zordon's wave of good energy, which has been spread all throughout your galaxy, has caused a strange effect in the universe's balance. How so? Andrew asked. You see, Zordon's attempt was meant to either completely destroy or purify all KN. Own an existing evil in the star system and beyond was done using his own life force and connection to the Morphin Grid, an endless source of positive energy. However, even with such a grand source of power, nothing is absolute. While it is true that Zordon's wave did destroy or purify all existing dark beings, at least in your galaxy, it was only on the beings of evil. Evil is a concept, if you will. Just as the concept of good cannot be entirely destroyed from every sentient being, neither can the concept of evil be destroyed completely. It can be blocked, it can be reshaped, it could be buried deep in your heart and mind, but never truly gone. Everyone is capable of good or evil. As such, while Zordon may have removed evil from your world, it was never truly eliminated, merely reformed. She told them, her expression serious and hard. Somehow, someway, all the presumed, destroyed, evil energy has reformed itself, containing itself, into a solid, crystallized shape. It became known as the Dark Crystal, the universe's evil. Said to hold all the evil energy Zordon's wave was thought to have eradicated. In truth, no one has ever seen it in form, merely being mentioned through dreams or visions. I myself had been fruitlessly trying to locate it when I first learned of its existence, if only to ensure that it was forever contained and out of reach before someone found it. She sighed, shoulders sagging. It must be some cruel and humorless joke of the universe for the crystal to be on Earth of all places this whole time and discovered by my husband. Andrew frowned, not liking what he was hearing. So, if this dark crystal truly does hold such an amount of evil, and Mr. Neilrod found it, Mac continued, also frowning. Rita nodded sadly. Whatever remnants of Lord Zedd laid deep inside Fred was awoken, empowered by the dark crystal, allowing for his resurrection and possession of my husband. And he will only grow stronger in time, until he regains his former power, and perhaps even more as time goes on. How? The dark crystal, according to stories and hypotheses, absorbs the darkness of other beings, passing that darkness to whoever holds the crystal, empowering them. I fear that if Lord Zedd is not stopped soon, the collective darkness could drown the light within Zedd that is my husband, until he ceases to exist. Rita told them worriedly. Mac frowned. That won't happen, he states, standing up. The Power Rangers will stop Lord Zedd and save Mr. Neilrod, he declared. Rita smiled at him, nodding in thanks. I thank you for your words, young Mac. You are indeed right, Freddy will be saved by Power Rangers. However, it won't be you Rangers, she said, making Mac blink at her. Confused. What do you mean? Rita held a mysterious smile. There will be a team of Rangers to face Lord Zedd when the time comes. However, it will not be Earth's Rangers. Andrew blinked at her. Are you referring to Rangers from other worlds? He asked, recalling Tommy telling him about the Aquitar Rangers and Galaxy Rangers. At the time, it Nned Andrew at the fact that there were actually Power Rangers on other planets. Rita nodded, holding her smile. Yes, I have witnessed a vision of a new team of rangers soon to be born. A special group. However, even with them being from a far-off planet, they will require your aid in their future battle against Lord Zedd. While surprised at the knowledge about a team of rangers on another planet, Mac nodded. Determined to help however he could. What do we need to do? Rita stood up. First, I must speak to all the rangers, together. Elemental nations. The sky over the village of Konoha was covered in clouds, blocking any rays of the sun, while its citizens, both average and shinobi, went about their day as usual, either calmly walking among the graveled ground of the streets, or leaping through the air from rooftop to rooftop. Meanwhile, within the top floor of the Hokage building, within her office, the 5th Hokage of Konoha, Senju Tsunade was going on with her usual paperwork. Pausing every once in a while to let out a heavy, bored sigh or groan, or to glance between the office door and the drawer of her desk, where her hidden bottle of sake laid. It took every ounce of will she had to not take out the bottle to drink, not wanting to risk the chance of Shizune entering at that very moment and catching her. She was not willing to go through her assistant students scolding and lectures about the importance of work and setting a proper example as a leader. Her most endearing trait, as well as the most troublesome, she though. UGHT to herself with a small smile and slight head shake. Part of her thought Shizune needed to go and get herself a boyfriend, or girlfriend, she didn't judge, if only so she could finally have a moment of peaceful drinking. She was taken out of her thoughts when she heard a knock on her door. With a small sigh, fearing it was indeed her assistant to bring her more headaches, she gave permission to enter. The door opening was indeed Shizune, making Tsunade hold in a groan, dreading getting more papers to do. However, her attention was quickly straightened by the look on her apprentice's face. The shock, dreadful, and sad expression made a shiver go down her spine, a tightening feeling forming in her stomach. Shizune, what is it? She demanded, immediately going serious and at attention. Lady, Tsunade, Kakashi has returned to the village. Shizune spoke, her voice low, barely hearable. Her shoulders shook softly, as if the woman was using all her willpower to not break down crying. The tightening feeling increased. And what is the problem? The Sannin asked, narrowing her eyes, her hands clenching into tight fists, recalling she sent Kakashi to aid Naruto and his fellow young shinobi in bringing back the runaway Uchiha brat. It shouldn't have been a problem, right? Then she recalled the sudden urge of dark chakra she sensed. It was faint, but she knew that chakra was everywhere. The chakra of a tailed beast. Not just any tailed beast either. The one that nearly wiped Konoha off the map entirely 15 years ago. Sure, at the time, she was far away from the village, off on her pity trip over losing her loved ones during the Second War, but even from afar, she had sensed that dreadful energy. The chakra of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. To sense that chakra, it could only mean that something had happened to Naruto. She had hoped that sending Kakashi to his location, with his Sharingan, would have ensured that the beast had been calmed and Naruto was safe. However, for Kakashi to return, and Shizune with such a dead expression on her face. Tsunade feared the worst, and she wasn't sure she could handle such a possibility. Not after almost losing him the first time. Kakashi. Shizune struggled to say, but the words kept halting in her throat. Thankfully, someone arrived to help her, as the door opened again. And Kakashi stepped into the room. Stepping forward in front of the Hokage's desk, Kakashi saluted. However, to Tsunade, Kakashi's face looked more concealed than his regular mask provided. No emotion in his visible eye. Jonin Hitaki Kakashi reporting, Hokage-sama. He said, his tone monotone and blank. Tsunade's frown deepened even heavier as she nodded. Report. Lowering his arm, moving both behind his back, Kakashi took a deep breath. Mission to retrieve the runaway genin, Uchiha Sasuke, was a success, Hokage. The Uchiha is currently detained and in a private medical room to have his injuries looked at under Anbu guard. From personal analysis, Uchiha has suffered minor cuts and wounds, a few broken bones and ribs, severe chakra exhaustion, and a non-threatening injury to the chest by what I can only guess was a depowered Rasengan. Aside from some skin shaving, it is non-life-threatening. Some rest and healing should fix him up for interrogation upon your request. Narrowing her eyes at a hard glare, Tsunade nodded. If she had her way, she would have broken the brat's legs and arms before throwing him in Anbu Penitentiary for high stunt and putting the lives of several of her shinobi at risk. To try and desert the village like he did, and to Konoha's biggest enemy, no less. The brat should be lucky he was still alive. Taking a deep breath to calm herself, Tsunade nodded at Kakashi. Very good. I'll deal with the brat later. I'm assuming Naruto's at the hospital, getting whatever injuries he got healed, all the WH. Il having a big smile on his face at accomplishing his mission. She asked rhetorically, smirking in amusement at her favorite knucklehead. However, her smile died when she saw Kakashi and Shizune both flinch at the mention of Naruto. What? She asked. Hokage-sama, Kakashi began. Behind him, Shizune covered her mouth as she began to cry. Narrowing her eyes, they then shot wide open, her blood going ice cold. No, Tsunade muttered. I'm sad to say, Kakashi continued. Tsunade slowly began shaking her head. Don't tell me. Not him. She begged. Kakashi lowered his head. Behind his back, he clenched his fists tightly, shaking. There were complications. Shooting up from her seat, Tsunade slammed her hands on top of her desk, cracking the wood. What happened? Damn it. Letting out a shuddering breath, Kakashi reached into his vest before setting something on the desk. Looking down, Tsunade looked ready to burst a blood vessel or crack her teeth with how hard she clenched them, her whole body shaking like mad. I'm sad to say. Until further evidence to support his current status, Genin Uzumaki Naruto is M.I.A. Due to inside interference. Placed on the desk was a blank Anbu mask. It resembled a normal ANBU's mask perfectly. However, given the information provided, as well as figuring out what sort of complication would be with the mask, it gave Tsunade one solid answer. Danzo, she growled out, the name hissing from her clenched teeth like venom as she glared at the moss. K with the blazing hate of Amaterasu's scorn. Konoha Hospital. The sound of a heavy sigh rang through the space within the medical center, as the freshly promoted Chunin Shikamaru tiredly leaned back against the wall. Sitting on a cushioned bench as he waited to hear about the status of his fellow rookies who were personally handpicked by him to take part in the mission to bring back Sasuke when he attempted to run off. So far, out of those who took part in the mission, on the team, or aided, only 3 of the 6 Konoha shinobi, counting Lee, as Shikamaru was told the idiotic taijutsu use. Had immediately ran off to help his team the second he was given the okay by the Hokage after his surgery, suffered critical injuries that had to be immediately brought back to the village by higher-ranked shinobi sent as backup. Shikamaru counted the reckless bull-headed genin lucky to not have gotten his body broken again thanks to the timely arrival of Gaara, as well his siblings who he was told helped save not only his butt, but Kiba's as well from the other sound shinobi. I swear, Lee can be just as much of a headache as Naruto, he thought, shaking his head. Something told him that at that moment, Lee was no doubt training once more like the troublesome training maniac he was. Oh man. Just thinking about him is giving me a headache tilde. Hearing an amused chuckle, owed by the feeling of a hand patting his shoulder, Shikamaru groaned, moving his head just the slightest bit to look beside him, where his clearly amused father sat next to him. Take it from me. Now that you're a Chunin, you'll be having plenty more missions like this, Shika told his son, smirking lightly as he got a louder groan from his son. What a drag, Shikamaru moaned as he dropped his head. I should have rejected the promotion. But then I would have had to deal with Mom. There was no winning. So troublesome. Hearing a scoff, Shikamaru raised his head a bit, looking ahead of him, where a slightly bigger source of his recent headache sat cross-legged on the chair across from him. Grow a spine, you big baby. You act like every day's a chore for you. Tamari scolded, glaring at the Nara Chunin in annoyance. Shikamaru blinked blandly at her. With people like you, it might as well be, he muttered, wondering why the short-tempered blonde he knew, one of the short-tempered blondes he had the unfortunate luck of knowing, was still here. Unfortunately for him, Tamari heard him loud, and very much clear. What the hell did you just say? The Sand Kunoichi shouted angrily, standing up, a fire of rage in her eyes as she placed her hand on her large fan resting beside her. Well, needless to say, she was signaling her desire to use it as a club to smash against his head. Hoping to prevent a murder, from happening in the hospital, and save his son from an early death, Shikaku held his hands up to try and calm the situation. Now, let's remember that we're in a hospital. This is no place to fight. Thankfully, the words helped remind Temari of where she was, as she stopped her attempted warpath. Taking a deep breath to calm her nerves and not cause any trouble to the already tense reformed treaty after her village betrayed Konoha and aided in Orochimaru's invasion barely a month ago. Managing to calm down, she nodded to the veteran in thanks, sitting back down, settling with just glaring at Shikamaru, murder in her eyes, but nothing else. For now, seeing this, of course, Shikamaru sighed. Troublesome tilde. Just then, the sound of approaching steps against the tiled floor reached the gathered group's ears. Turning their attention, the three saw the co-leading doctor who, along with Shizune, was in charge of overseeing the healing of Shikamaru's squad. At his appearance, Shikamaru surprisingly stood to his feet with more energy than he would usually display, a visible mask of worry and anticipation on his face. How are they? He questioned urgently. Looking at the worried fresh Chunin, the doctor took a moment to gaze at the similar expressions on Temari's and Shikaku's faces. Though the clan head expertly held back most of his emotion, given past experiences in this situation, having faced both good and bad news concerning old allies and teammates. Turning his attention back on Shikamaru, the doctor allowed a small smile to grace his face. All three members of your squad that have been brought in have successfully made it through their operations thanks to the aid of their clans. And are now resting, he stated, getting a loud sigh of relief from the relieved Nara Chunin, as well as a silent one from Temari, who was glad that the timely arrival of her and her brothers had prevented the possible deaths of the Inuzuka heir, the Lee kid, and the lazy Nara, as well as hearing that the other members were doing all right. However, noting something, Shikaku narrowed his eyes. Excuse me, Dr. San. You said 3 members of the squad. Has there been any reports on Genin Uzumaki-san? He asked, making Shikamaru realize that as well. He had thought Naruto made it back already, whether victorious in bringing back Sasuke, or empty-handed and injured. Even with the troublesome blonde's reported healing, Shikamaru would have at least thought Naruto would have been brought in for a checkup. The doctor shook his head. While the captured Uchiha was brought in for checkup and slight healing under security watch, we have yet to receive any word of the arrival of Uzumaki. Shikamaru raised a brow. How was that possible? If Naruto truly was able to bring back Sasuke, he should have also been taken to have a look over as per after mission protocol. So, where was he? He should have returned and been brought to the hospital, even if kicking and screaming. He narrowed his eyes. Something was wrong. Suddenly, everyone's attention shifted as an Anbu appeared beside them in a flicker, nodding to Shikaku. Nara-sama, you were to report to the council chamber for an emergency meeting. They reported, leaving as fast as they appeared, not allowing either Naras to respond. Glancing at one another, the father and son Naras shared a frown, both having a bad feeling in the pits of their stomachs. Council chambers. The floor practically shook at the heavy steps, practically stomps, of Tsunade as she made her way towards the chambers. She marched with a war-leading stance, her eyes sharp and seeking death and blood. Behind her, Shizune and Kakashi followed, the apprentice for once not attempting to calm her master's obvious anger. If anything, she held a similar display of anger in her puffy red eyes. A glare of steel shared among all 3 adults as they sought retribution and vengeance on the one who has no doubt orchestrated the attempted capture, and subsequently causing the disappearance, possibly even death, of Uzumaki Naruto. Reaching the double doors of the chamber, Tsunade did not hesitate, not even trying to rein in her fury, as she blasted the doors off their hinges with a punch, sending them flying across the large room to smash against the far wall, much to the shock of everyone inside. Tsunade, what is the meaning of this? One of the oh-so-holy elders, as well as one of the biggest pains in Tsunade's ass, Mitokado Homura, demanded. However, as the glare in Tsunade's eyes shot upon him, Homura found himself freezing, held in place by the intensity of those eyes. The sight of such an ice-cold glare made his mind flash back to a similar glare a much younger Tsunade would hold during the mournful days of the Second Shinobi War following the death of her younger brother, Naoki. Dark times, where Tsunade's anger would be held by only a string, where the slightest wrong move would unleash an onslaught of furious chakra-infused punches at whosoever dared to anger her. Unwilling to be the unfortunate victim, especially with her legendary strength, Homura wisely sat back silently, mercifully removing her gaze from the elderly man, Tsunade. Instead aimed it at the sole target of her fury. Danzo, you have some nerve. Sitting in his place on the far end of the long table with his fellow elders, Danzo remained calm as ever, undaunted by the cage's fury. What, may I ask, could have caused such reactions from you, Tsunade? Getting angrier by his calm words, and not in the mood for games, Tsunade marched up to the end of the table before her. Slamming her hands so hard down on the surface that she broke a large piece off, the Senju princess unleashed her anger in a roar. Do not play games with me, Danzo. I know full well what you have tried to do. Do you have any idea what you've done? Hokage-sama. The calm, almost stoic voice of Hyuga Hiyashi, clan head of the Hyuga clan, was heard. If you'd allow me to say, please calm yourself. And explain what you are accusing Danzo of to better allow the rest of us to understand. Gritting her teeth, but miraculously managing to ease some of her anger back a bit as she took a deep, sharp breath. Still glaring death at Danzo, Tsunade nodded. I'm accusing Danzo of treason, she exclaimed, to the shock of the council as they stared at her, before looking towards Danzo. Some of the clan heads raising an eyebrow, while others narrowed their eyes suspiciously at the silent crippled elder. There is no accusation here. It is by the word of Jonin Hitaki Kakashi, T. Hat Genin Uzumaki Naruto has been attacked following his successful prevention of Uchiha Sasuke's desertion and heading towards Nukenin Orochimaru, by beings masquerading as Konoha Anbu, wearing well-documented blank masks. Masks worn by the supposed disassembled root forces, formerly led and managed by Danzo. Your actions are not only an illegal disruption of a Konoha shinobi assigned mission, assigned by ME no less, but a treacherous play in capturing Konoha's Jinchuriki for your own obvious goals. Such an attempt would very well allow me to call on your immediate arrest and death. However, to make matters worse, your actions have led to the possible death of Naruto, she shouted at the top of her lungs, gripping the broken table tightly, cracking it, as the chamber fell into silence. The heads sitting with wide eyes for a few, while others frowned heavily, as all eyes moved towards the silent elder. Danzo sat on his chair quietly, calmly holding his cane as his lone visible EY. Stayed squinted on the panting Tsunade, holding strong against her glare with his stoic stare. After a while, he fully closed his unbandaged eye. It is true, I ordered the still-functioning root to capture Uzumaki, he revealed, much to everyone's shock. Then I'll kill you, you fucking traitorous bastard, Tsunade shouted, wanting oh so very much to leap at the man and tear him apart. However, before she could try, Danzo continued speaking. However, my actions are, and will forever, be for the greater good of Konoha. They have never been acts of treason, no matter what you might believe, Tsunade. He stated, opening his lone eye. It is true, I have not disbanded Root, even on the order of the previous Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, during his first reign as Hokage following the end of the Third War. Being deemed no longer necessary, as were his words. However, even then, it has never truly been fully inactive, merely in stasis. The objective of Root F, following its creation during the Second War, was and is to provide the necessary shinobi force capable of completing the missions and tasks the average Konoha shinobi have become too weak-willed to do. To intercept, infiltrate, and if necessary, sabotage the village's enemy forces to prevent any possible attack and possible destruction, such as what has occurred from the surprise invasion from T. He traitorous Orochimaru and our supposed allies, Suna. That attack, as well as the night of the Kyuubi no Kitsune's sudden attack, is the very reason why I saw fit to force my own hand and reactivate my root program to try and safeguard our weakened home. As I may remind everyone, Konoha was still weakened following the aftermath of the Third War. The Kyuubi's attack only served to further weaken us. As I said, my hands were forced. Secondly, Sarutobi, who has grown tired and distracted following his forced reinstatement as Hokage, was blind to not notice the high tension in our alliance with Suna. As their lord sent more missions to us instead of his own village, greatly damaging their investments. Forgive me for speaking ill of the deceased, but Sarutobi was a fool to trust Suna so easily and to believe they would not act on their anger. While he followed the foolish belief that peace could be achieved with friendship, I, on the other hand, saw the reality for the truth it was. However, when I brought my thoughts and concerns to Sarutobi, he ignored them. His old age has made him ignorant of the truths happening around him. He was too late to realize them, and paid for his mistakes. He said, making Tsunade shake in rising anger. Yes, I ordered Root to capture Uzumaki Naruto, but not for my own wishes, as much as it's hard to believe Tsunade, but the villages. We all know, very well, of the boy's personality. He is childish, quick to anger, reckless, a ticking time bomb we cannot afford to have. Unlike many here, I have read the mission reports provided by Jonin Hitaki. He ignored the glare from the narrowed-eyed Kakashi. More than once, the boy had summoned forth the beast's power during his missions under bouts of anger. In the very presence of his teammates and squad no less. How could we possibly trust that the boy would not lose himself to the beast's influence? He was still untrained, a loose cannon. Should he have fallen prey to the Kyuubi, he would very well cause the destruction of Konoha and her people. At worst, right in the center of the village. No, that is something I could not allow. As such, I saw fit to do what Sarutobi and you yourself were too blind to do. Under my watch, Uzumaki would have learned to cast off his emotions as a true shinobi should. He would have learned to properly utilize the Kyuubi's power and use it for the sake of the village, not his own. Do you honestly expect me to believe that? Tsunade shouted. We all know what you would have done with Naruto. You would have made him into a mindless, obedient drone, a weapon, your weapon to use to become Hokage. You hold such little faith in my loyalty, Tsunade. Whether it is you who is on that seat or I, we both do what we can for the village. The difference between us, however, is what we are willing to do for Konoha's survival against the other villages. Danzo stated, his tone firm as he narrowed his eye at the slug princess. You mean turning children into emotionless tools, sucking the very will and soul out of them until they become your ultimate shinobi. I would never allow you to do that to Naruto. Tsunade exclaimed, pounding the table, cracking it more. Danzo grunted, your feelings for the boy blind you, Tsunade. Whether or not you care for him is irrelevant to the reality of the world. Whether the victory has been gained or not, we are always at war, and so we must always be prepared for invasions and attacks. Whether they come from outside the village walls, or from within. The boy held the strongest of the Biju. His current growth was a waste. As the two argued back and forth, the rest of the council watched and listened silently, their thoughts shifting by the words from either side. As much as they didn't want to say it, some of them had to agree with Danzo. Konoha has gone through several wars, and even in the so-called time of peace, EY would be idiotic to settle their arms and weapons. They already paid for it already with the losses of their beloved Hokages, the fourth with the Kyuubi attack, and the third with the Suna Sound invasion. While it might look like it, the village was in a pretty bad state. Even with the few alliances they gained, they would be unable to survive should Kuma or Iwa, still agitated and tense after the wars and attacks of the past, decide to team up against them. Not to mention that the two villages still held 2 Jinchuriki each. Should such invasions were to happen, even worse with their beasts. The clan heads doubted in Konoha's survival, even with the aid of Suna, who was also weakened from the invasion on top of its years of mission loss, and Taki, a minor village with less manpower compared to a major one. However, there were also those in the council that disagreed with Danzo's method. While it can be argued that Uzumaki Naruto's performance as a shinobi could be labeled as unorthodox, it can't be denied that his unconventionality helped save their home during Orochimaru's invasion when he went up against the one-tailed sand demon. He was even the one who convinced Tsunade to return and take on the Hokage mantle. The clan heads also thought about his friendship with their children, and while it was never stated outright by them, the parents felt that Naruto seemed to unintentionally inspire them to get stronger, to be better. After all, If the dead last of the academy could get so strong in such a short amount of time after graduating, what did that say about them? Even Hiyashi would admit that the boy aided his clan in more ways than one, albeit unknowingly. Especially his oldest daughter and nephew, Neji, following his match with Naruto in the Chunin exams. And the reveal of the truth concerning his father, has greatly turned in attitude, losing his cold outlook on life, now displaying a much warmer and open side with a burning fire in his eyes. As for Hinata, well, there was no secret of the girl's affection and awe for the boy, and while shy in personality that sometimes had Hiyashi at conflicting feelings, he knew that in the girl's heart, she too held a fierce fire and desire to get stronger. Stronger, like Naruto. Seeing everyone debating amongst themselves, Danzo closed his one eye, humming to himself. Was my action one of rushed consequence? Admittedly, yes, I had believed the boy to be too tired to resist. However, do not think that the end goal was for my own benefit. As I stated, all that I do is for the prosperity of the village I love. I had known that if my decision was brought before you, Tsunade, with your biased negativity towards me and my methods, you would do all in your power to fight against it. Wasted time we could not have. As such, I was forced to make my own actions to ensure the end route I saw best. He said, getting everyone's attention as they looked at him. Tsunade, Kakashi, and the clan heads all narrowed their eyes at the root leader. Danzo, Tsunade hissed, glaring at the silent man with the fury of Kyuubi itself. What did you do? Opening his eye, Danzo looked straight at Tsunade. I have personally traveled to the capital of the Land of Fire, and met with the Fire Daimyo in regard to Konoha's security and military. In the end, he agreed with me on all accounts. Given his disappearance, Uzumaki Naruto is to be labeled as a missing ninja with an on-site capture order, and to be brought back to the village, where he would begin his re-education and training to better serve his role as Konoha's Jinchuriki. The room fell silent, all eyes on the bandaged man, wide in shock. None more so than his fellow elders, Homura and Kaharu. You did what? Kaharu shouted. Her compatriot could only plop back into his chair, his face in utter disbelief. The whole half of the long table shattered under Tsunade's furious punch. Earth. North America. San Angeles. Hartford Mansion. So, how are you going to contact the other rangers? Mac asked as he and his father stood with Rita out in the mansion's garden. He was a bit confused, as the former sorceress of evil stated that she needed to speak with all of the rangers, both on and off-world. Looking at him, Rita held a small amused smirk. How else? She said, holding out her hand. In a small flash of light, her staff appeared in her grasp. With magic, of course. Mac just nodded dumbly. Of course. As well as something I was given to aid in contacting all past rangers. Rita said, holding out her other hand. With a swirl of light and magic, a large orb appeared on top of her hand. It was about the size of a basketball, glowing with a mystical shine. Clear white in color with a shifting mix of rainbow colors as well. Whatever it was, it made Mac shiver. However, it wasn't an ominous feeling he was having. It was comforting, familiar even. It almost felt like he knew what this feeling was, but couldn't put his finger on it. Mac, Andrew called out, noting something. Your morpher. Blinking, Mac took out his morpher from his back pocket, raising a brow when he saw it was glowing a red glow. What the? Allow me to explain, Rita said, getting the father-son duo's attention. This. She held up the orb as a special crystallized piece of the morphin grid. She revealed, to their surprise. The morphin grid, crystal, Andrew questioned, dumbfounded. Rita nodded. Yes, with it, I can set up a link to all who hold a connection to the grid, all known Power Rangers on Earth and out, whether they still have their powers or not. But, if they no longer have their powers to become Rangers, how could they still be connected to the grid? Andrew asked, knowing from Tommy that some of the past Rangers lost their powers in their final battles against their villains. Rita smiled softly at the man. They only lost the connection between their morphers and the grid. The grid has always remained connected to their hearts and souls. It is as they say, once a Ranger, always a Ranger. Wow, Mac muttered, surprised by that. To think a Ranger's connection to the morphin grid was so strong. Looking at the morphin orb as she dubbed it, Rita nodded. It's time to call on the Rangers, she said, turning about, holding the orb high up. As he watched, Mac couldn't help but ask, "So, how exactly are we doing this? Are you going to, summon them here? Or hear their voices?" Before Rita could answer, the orb began to glow brightly, its shine blinding the humans as they were forced to cover their eyes. Unbeknownst to Mac, his morpher also began to glow brightly. Reefside. The sound of wheels crunching over grass and gravel was heard as a black jeep pulled up to a lone house on the side of a forest. The door opened and a dark-haired man stepped out. Phone against his ear. "Yeah, I heard of the mixed martial arts being held here in a few months. I was told Connor was thinking of entering, wanting to make sure his skills in fighting are still good." "Me? Nah man, I'm not as young and limber as I once was, haha. I mean, I still go to the gym and dojo when I can. Never know when trouble comes around." "Really? Well, it'd be awesome to see you and the others again. Let me know when you guys come to pick you up." "Awesome. Hey, gotta go. Just got home." "Alright, talk to y'all later Jason. See ya." Ding the call with his old teammate rival, Tommy Oliver reached into the back of the Jeep, pulling out his duffel bag. Holding it over his shoulder, he headed to his house. Seeing a discarded bicycle laid out on the front lawn, Tommy shook his head fondly with an eye roll. "That kid," he muttered, knowing his sometimes forgetful son was the culprit. Grabbing the bike and placing it beside the front steps, Tommy headed in. "JJ, you gotta stop leaving your things in front of the house." "Oh, sorry Dad, it's all right, just don't forget next time bud," he replied back. Placing his bag down against the wall, he headed to the kitchen to get a drink. Once there, he smiled as he saw the back of his lovely wife, humming a tune as she cooked dinner. "I'm back." Looking over her shoulder, her long brown hair shifting smoothly in the air, his wife smiled at him. "Welcome back. How was the workout?" she asked. Stepping up, Tommy wrapped his arms around her waist, hugging her as he pecked her on the cheek. "Exhausting, Kimberly Hart Oliver hummed, leaning her head away as her nose cringed. "I can see and smell," she commented, making Tommy chuckle. She slapped his hand away before he could grab a piece of meat on the cutting board. "I'll call when dinner is ready. Go wash up." Giving a joking pout, Tommy nodded. "Yes ma'am," he grumbled. With another peck, he headed towards their room, leaving his chuckling wife. As he gathered his clothes and headed to the bathroom to shower, Tommy paused from his place in front of the cabinet beside his bed. Hesitating for a moment, he closed the top drawer, before opening the bottom one, staring into it as he gazed at the contents held within. Most of the objects in the drawer were unimportant. However, the one that held his attention stood out more than the rest. There, where it's always been at the corner, was a small metal safe box, dark gray in color, with a three-dimensional lightning bolt design engraved on the top. A fond smile grew on his face as he placed his clothes to the side. Reaching into the drawer, Tommy pulled out the box. Sitting down on the edge of his bed, Tommy rubbed his hand over the box top, his fingers tracing the lightning bolt. His smile grew, memories playing in his head. His urge compelling him, Tommy put in the code into the case's digital padlock. Unlocking the box, opening the lid, he gazed at the items inside. Items of his past, all of his old, deactivated, and pretty much destroyed morphers from his many years of being a Power Ranger. One of Earth's many secret protectors. The Power Morpher with the Dragon Power Coin, Tiger Power Coin, and Falcon Ninja Coin at one corner. From his time as the Might Y Morphin Green Ranger and later the Mighty Morphin White Ranger. Honestly, the items looked very beaten, looking incredibly roughed up and ready to break or turn to dust. The morpher looked like it imploded on itself, a large crack running through its front, while the Tiger and Falcon coins were all broken in half, the power they once held in them, gone forever. The Dragon coin, on the other hand, looked to still be stable. If a bit aged, having been formerly given to his clone, or doppelganger more like, Tom Oliver, who after managing to make amends with the original, decided to stay back in the past in old colonial Angel Grove, watching over it for any trouble as a secret Power Ranger. Imagine his surprise, when one day he received an old-looking letter, being told it was given specific instructions to be given to him exactly on a specific day, in a specific year, on a specific location. Talk about being in a Back to the Future movie. The letter turned out to be from Tom, who expressed his hope that Tommy lived a good life and found happiness, explaining how Tom had also lived his life protecting the people of the past, even managing to start a family. Tommy, of course, tried to not think about it too much, or the implications of this being my own grandfather, situation. Anyway, with the letter, Tommy found the Dragon Power coin, with Tom expressing to he felt it would only be right that it was returned to him. Shaking his thoughts away for now, Tommy looked at the Zeonizer with the red Zeo sub-crystal beside it. From his time as Zeo Ranger V5 Red, while the morpher itself looked to be intact, just deactivated, with the crystal having lost its once luminous glow, now looking dull and lifeless. Finally, the Brachiomorpher and the Black Dino Gem. From his last official time as a Ranger, the Black Dino Ranger. By comparison to the other morphers, the Brachiomorpher and Dino Gem still remained intact, with the Black Dino Gem still holding some power within it. Just as he had the power of the gem within himself. The power of invisibility. However, his morpher had its connection to the Morphin Grid severed after the final battle with Mesogog. Although his old friend Haley offered many times to try and re-establish the link, he always rejected it. He was officially retired from Ranger duty. Especially when he had his family to think about. However, he knew deep within, should trouble ever come knocking, he would always be ready to take up arms again. And he'd be proud to stand with the new Generate Ion of Rangers along with the former students he fought alongside as the Dino Thunder Power Rangers. Not to mention all the past Rangers. Looking back into the box, the only one that was not there was the Turbo Morpher and Key from when he was the Red Turbo Ranger, as he had given the power to T.J. Johnson, who himself, while having lost his Ranger powers, had a robotic duplicate who shared the power, as strange as it sounded. But compared to everything he faced, it wasn't the craziest. He couldn't help but chuckle a bit while thinking back on the life he lived. All the twists and turns. Meeting the girl who'd eventually become his wife. All the friends he made. All the incredible things he bore witness to. Becoming a leader. Even becoming a teacher himself. For Bo.th high school students and for a new generation of Power Rangers. It's been quite the ride. Tommy thinks to himself. He looks back into the drawer and sees Kim's box containing her own morpher and coins. He smiled, knowing Kimberly shared his nostalgia about their Ranger pasts. However, together, they had both agreed that the past ought to stay in the past, and that it was better to look toward the future. Especially after the birth of their son. Speaking of which, he heard his son talking with his mother in the dining room, making him nod his head. He didn't regret his decision. His time as a Power Ranger was long over, and he had full faith in the new Rangers, and any more than came, to keep the planet, and the people in it, safe from any threats. With a smile, he's about to close the box, but froze when he sees his Ranger gear beginning to suddenly glow their respective colors, making him blink in surprise and confusion. What the? He asks out loud. Exclamation mark. Suddenly, everything turned white. Meanwhile, far far away from Earth, on an unknown planet, in an unknown galaxy, within what appeared to be a city in ruins, was a barely standing castle. Within its dark interior, a dark vortex opened up, an unseen wind blowing away dust and sand across the stone floor as Lord Zedd stepped through it. Scanning the area, Zedd growled in irritation, his mask lens glowing. You're gone for a few decades and everything falls to dust. He grunted, annoyed. Sweeping his head away in anger, Zedd stomped through the darkness of the chamber, the metallic claw. Nging of his staff hitting the ground echoing out. Approaching a large stone throne in the center, Zedd sat down with a huff. HMPH. I suppose the state of my fortress is inconsequential. He FTS his hand and feels the center of his chest, a violet light glowing as he feels the dark crystal pulsing within him, its power coursing through him. All that matters now is regaining my full strength and more, and at last finishing what I began so long ago. Please, stop this. Growling, Zedd stood up, his eye lens glowing red. Silence. Your mere existence is a mockery to all I have accomplished in the past. Centuries of conquest and victory. To lose it all to defeat by humans. If not for that fool Rita's incompetence and her accursed love potion that twisted my mind, I would have destroyed those damn rangers and conquered Earth easily. It's all her fault. Don't you dare talk about my wife like that. Zedd scoffed. And just what do you plan on doing about it, Freddy? Soon, your lingering existence shall be extinguished by the dark crystal. No more shall I hear your insufferable voice. Just hearing it gives me a headache. So human, to think, you or me. Trust me, I wish I wasn't. The things I've done, we truly were a monster. Lord Zedd began to chuckle darkly. Yes, we were, and I shall be again. Stepping away from his throne, Zedd moved towards an opening at the side, stepping into a balcony. And gazing down at the ruins of his once glorious and fearsome empire. Gripping the stone rail, cracking it, Zedd began to cackle, the glow of the dark crystal shining on his chest. Dark violet energy began to surround his form, the glow of his lens turning purple, as the dark crystal began empowering him. Soon, my power shall rise anew, and the galaxy, the cosmos. The whole universe will fear the name Lord Zedd once more. He shouted out into the emptiness of the planet. No, no, Rita will stop you, her and the Power Rangers. Fred shouted from within Lord Zedd, defiant against his old self. As the glow dimmed down as he gained control over his short outburst, Lord Zedd gained a hidden smirk under his mask. We shall see. While admittedly, Lord Zedd knew his chances against the new and much more powerful Rita were not good, given his weakened state, Lord Zedd was confident in his victory in the end. All he had to do was plan his moves carefully. Turning around, he stepped back into his castle. I must regain my power quickly, preferably before Rita locates me. Energy. I need to gather more dark energy. If the legends of the dark crystal are true, its power to absorb dark energy will empower me more than I could ever have imagined. The knowledge of the dark crystal was few and limited, its existence formerly having been only in myth. He will need to test it. Stopping in the center of the room, Lord Zedd leaned his head upward, staring at the ceiling above. Staring into the cosmos beyond, and at the nearby planets. Once more, Zedd's lens glowed an ominous violet. Ha ha ha, I am quite hungry, let's go out and find a snack. Back on Earth. Unknown location. When Tommy opened his eyes, having closed them when that blinding light appeared, he looked around in confusion. No longer in his bedroom, Tommy found himself in an unknown location, the surroundings having no objects or anything solid, and instead, it was all a constant swirling, shifting mess of colors. It was quite nauseating really. Tommy, eyes widening, the Ranger veteran spun around, finding his wife behind him, looking just as surprised at their surroundings as him. Kimberly, where are we? Kim asked, looking around, tense and concerned, the latter being for the possible whereabouts of their son, given she was just speaking with him when the flash of light happened. If her husband and her were teleported away, it meant JJ was home, alone, and no doubt worried sick. Looking around with narrowed eyes, Tommy kept his guard up. I don't know. Just stick close, and be ready for anything. Tommy, Kimberly. Suddenly, the two adults went wide-eyed, hearing a familiar voice. Turning around, the two were shocked to see some familiar faces heading their way. No way. Jason. Zach. Tommy called. Kimberly had a large smile grow on her face. Trini. Billy. As the rest of the original Mighty Morphin Ranger reached the two, they all shared hugs and handshakes with each other. Guess our reunion came sooner than planned. Zach jokes, getting chuckles and laughs. Billy smiled, nudging his glasses. Talk about unexpected forces. Tommy looked at his old rival. Any idea what's going on? He asked the first Red Ranger, getting a headshake. Your guess is as good as mine. I was discussing the trip with my wife 1 minute, the next, I'm here. Trini nodded. Same for Zach and I. Billy hummed in thought. Given our past connection, odds are this could be something Ranger related. What for? I'm unsure yet. Whatever the case, be ready for anything. Jason said, immediately switching to leader mode. The group nodded. Doctor. Oh, once again, Tommy's eyes widened, hearing a familiar voice. Turning his head, a wide smile spread on his lips, as the man saw 4 other adults heading towards the group. Connor, Ethan, Kira, Trent. I can't believe it. You're here, too. Approaching the first team of Dino-themed rangers, 4 adults in color-centric attire smiled at their old teacher and mentor. Tommy and Kimberly smiled as they met their approach, he woman greeting what she thought of as the spiritual successors of her old team, having met her husband's students at their high school graduation. At the time, she shared a laugh with Tommy at Dino Thunder Ranger fitting the whole teenagers with attitude shtick. With a wide smile at reuniting with his students, Tommy turned to his old friends. Guys, let me introduce you to my former students. Connor McKnight. Connor, formerly the Dino Thunder Red Ranger, smiled at them, holding a hand up in greeting. Hey, Ethan James. Ethan, Dino Thunder Blue Ranger, nodded with a smile. Sup, he said, getting some chuckles. Kira Ford Mercer. Hi. Kira, Dino Thunder Yellow Ranger, said, nodding. Trini and Zach smiled at her, having listened to her music. And finally, Trent Mercer. Hello. Trent, Dino Thunder White Ranger, greets. They're my old students I told you about. Realizing what Tommy meant, Jason smiled at the younger team. Nice to meet you, he said, shaking Connor's hand. Connor returned the smile. Likewise. Ethan stared at Jason for a moment, before gasping, getting everyone's attention. Ethan pointed at Jason. What a minute. I remember now. You're Jason Lee Scott, the first Red Ranger, he stated, making his friends go wide-eyed as they also connected the dots. Jason smiled at them, chuckling. Yeah, I was also the Zeo Gold Ranger, he said, not really bragging, but enjoying remembering his past. No way, Kira muttered, looking at the other MMPR members. You guys are the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Trini smiled at her. That's right, and you guys were the Dino Thunder Rangers. Nice to meet you guys. You guys are legends, Trent said, making Billy chuckle, rubbing the back of his head. Not really legends, I'd say, he said, humbled. Jason nodded at Connor. Tommy told us all about you guys. You guys did great work for your hometown. Connor smiled, feeling proud hearing that from the first ever Red Ranger. Thanks, it means a lot coming from you. Mind if we joined this party? Hearing a voice, followed by the sounds of many steps approaching. The group was shocked to see a large number of people approaching. Seeing where the voice came from, Tommy was the first to speak after the surprise. T.J. Johnson, the second Ed Turbo Ranger and later Blue Space Ranger, smiled along with some familiar faces, as more and more past Power Rangers exchanged introductions, with the feeling of amazement being felt at the knoll. Of how many Rangers there were in one location. This feeling was especially felt by those who hadn't had the chance to meet other Rangers before. I can't believe what I'm seeing. A tall black man with short dark hair in a blue shirt muttered in awe as he looked at the large gathering happening around him. Beside him, a woman of Asian features wearing a pink shirt nodded in equal awe. This is just incredible, to think there were so many Rangers. A woman with long blonde hair had a wide excited smile. This is amazing, she practically squealed in excitement. She turned to a tall man, who stared at the older Rangers with an equally surprised, but controlled expression. Did you know there were other Rangers on Earth, Jaden? The old leader of the Samurai Rangers looked at her, nodding softly. I knew of the existence of other Rangers from the news, but never had the honor of meeting any of them before, besides Scott as we all remember. His best friend shared Emily's large smile. This is fantastico, Antonio cheered, spreading his arms out in excitement, nearly hitting Mike. Dude, watch it, the Green Samurai Ranger told him, dodging an arm swipe. Emily looked at her friends. Let's go introduce ourselves, she said, and before anyone could say a word, she grabbed Mike's arm and proceeded to drag him towards the other Rangers. Hey, don't pull so hard. Nodding in agreement, Mia looked at the guys. Well, let's go, she said, walking towards the nearest Ranger she saw, Kevin following right behind. About to follow them, Antonio paused, seeing Jaden staying at his spot. Jaden, you coming? Jaden held a hand up. I'll be right there, you go on ahead, he said, making the Gold Ranger nod, leaving his friend alone. Or so he thought. Turning his head, Jaden smiled as someone approached him. Hey sis, he said, greeting his big sister. The true heir of the Shiba clan smiled happily at her little brother. Hey, Jay, she said, embracing him happily. After so many years of being apart from her brother to focus on her training to master their family's symbol power to take down Master Xander, Eren enjoyed any and all time she had with Jaden to make up for the lost time. As past Rangers enjoyed their reunions and new meetings with fellow heroes, one Ranger shared the same feeling of awe. I've never seen so many Rangers before, Mac muttered, looking at all the Power Rangers in their civilian forms, though he found it easy to figure out their Ranger colors by the given hint in either their attire or some other hint. It seemed that even when outside of Ranger duty, a Ranger always felt the need to represent their color in some form or another. When Rita said she needed to talk to all the past Rangers together, this was not what I was expecting. He thought, a bead of sweat rolling down his forehead. He wished his father came with him, seeing that it was apparently Rangers only. Honestly, a Ranger reunion party was the last thing he expected. Oh my god, guys, I found him. A familiar voice got his attention. Turning, the former android smiled when he spotted his old team heading his way. Guys, it's been a long time, he said, catching the happy rose as the former Pink Overdrive Ranger practically leapt at him. He returned her embrace, Chuck. Ling as the smaller woman tried to squeeze the air out of his new lungs. Oh, it's so good to see you again, Rose said, finally pulling back as she smiled at the man. How have you been? How's your dad and Spencer? They're great. They miss you all, Max said, sharing a fist bump with Will. Will, how's the security business? The former jewel thief chuckled, shrugging. A lot of news. Seriously need to update their security, he joked, getting a laugh from the former Rangers. Nodding, Mac turned to Ronnie. Hey, saw your latest race. Great victory. The top racer smirked, shrugging. It was easy. Not as exciting as driving a Zord, I tell ya. I bet, he said, before turning to the Blue Ranger of the group. Dax, how's the directing business going? The stunt actor turned aspiring director grinned widely. It's going awesome. I even helped with some top hit movies. Oh, you guys gotta keep an eye out for Zombies of the Lagoon 2. Trust me, you'll love it. Rolling her eyes at the excitable man, Ronnie turned to Rose. How about you? How's the teaching gig? Rose shrugged. Not bad. Classes go, and students change, but hey, after you saved the world. It's a nice peaceful thing to do, she commented, getting nods of agreement. Mac then turned to the team's only alien ranger. Taizan, how are things? He said, shaking hands with the Mercurian ranger, who smiled at his friends. Never better. Corona and I managed to find a wondrous location to build a home near the ocean. You guys should come to visit sometime. The others nodded, agreeing. All were happy to see one another, to discuss their lives after defeating Flurious and the peace they each enjoyed. Hearing their tales, it made Mac happy for his team, for their happiness. However, it also reminded him of the new threat to that peace, making him frown. Looking around at all the Rangers around him, he wondered what would be the reaction to Lord Zedd's return. Especially given Rita's warning to be told. I really wish this big get-together was under better circumstances, he thought to himself, knowing that pretty soon Rita would make her appearance and tell everyone of. Quite possibly, the greatest threat to Earth to come yet. As if knowing that the time for happy talk was over, ever the first to step up, Jason spoke up loud enough to be heard by everyone. Not that I don't appreciate and enjoy meeting so many Rangers, but does anyone know the reason for why we are all here together? I can answer that, dear Jason. In a flash of light, Rita showed herself. Much to the surprise of several Ranger teams, none more so than the Mighty Morphin and Mystic Rangers. Rita, Jason asked. Mystic Mother, Nick Russell, the Red Mystic Ranger, called. Surprised along with his fellow Rangers and parents as the sorcerers all stared at the most powerful sorceress ever. Rita smiled at the large gathering. Hello Rangers, it's a pleasure to see some familiar faces. And to see some new ones. However, I'm afraid this meeting is not one with good fortune. A great threat has revealed itself. However, this time, Earth is not the only planet in danger. But perhaps the whole universe. Narrowing his eyes, Tommy stepped up to stand beside Jason. What's the threat this time? We've all seen just about everything. From aliens to mutants, to robots. To dinosaurs, to wizards. Whatever the threat is, powers or not, we are still Rangers, and we won't let this evil threaten everything we love. He stated strongly, getting nods of agreement from all the other Rangers, all with the same look of determination on their faces. Even if most have lost their Ranger powers, they weren't just going to stand by as their home was threatened. Seeing such strong determination in the gathered people, Rita smiled proudly. This planet. Always so surprising, these humans. She thought before her frown returned. While I must commend you for your bravery, I'm afraid it's not as simple as you might believe. What do you mean? While she wasn't sure who exactly asked that among the Rangers, Rita knew everyone was curious. Closing her eyes, she let out a heavy sigh. An old enemy has risen from the grave, Rangers. A threat not seen for many years. She said ominously, opening her eyes to stare at the former Rangers with a grave look. Lord Zedd has returned. Elemental nations. Konoha. Leaf Hospital. The sound of aggressive eating rang through the hospital room as Choji went wild through bentos and bentos of food. Thanks to his concerned mother who had requested his teammate Ino bring them to him. Such a delivery wouldn't be so hard for the kunoichi, if they weren't by the wagon full. She literally had to carry her own weight with how heavy the large boxes were. There were enough to feed several teams. She was only glad she had some of the Akamichi clansmen help her carry them. Said girl could only watch on, an expression of disgust on her face, as she watched the bedridden, former big boy stuff his face. She would have thought that after years of being friends with the Akamichi, not to mention the months spent being on the same team as him, it would have made her more tolerable to the big-boned teen's eating habits. She was wrong, and Sakura called her a pig. Still, if this is what it takes to get Choji back to how he used to be, I'll endure it. Once a rather round young teen, Choji was currently looking more like a mummy with how skinny he was. While the thought of Choji being thin would have been something Ino would have liked to see, being to the point of the ribs being visible was something out of her worst nightmare. Talk about a health emergency. Damn it, Choji, slow down, would you? You just got out of surgery. She scolded, concerned for her friend's health outweighing her disgust. She really didn't know the specifics of Choji's injuries. But according to her father and Choza, whoever Choji faced while rescuing Sasuke forced the genin to use some sacred Akamichi clan technique that left his body in a pretty bad state. Enough had he needed to have his clan's elders oversee his healing and surgery. And seeing the aftermath of said technique, she could now see why it was an emergency-only thing. Beside her, sitting on a chair, Shikamaru sighed, shaking his head. It wasn't surgery, Ino. The Akamichi sacred pills turned Choji's fat into chakra, empowering him temporarily. Unfortunately, the side effect left his body severely drained. Even worse considering it's the first time Choji ever used those pills. Said the Chunin, looking at his best friend with barely hidden worry, his clenched fists hidden under his crossed arms, trembling. What he didn't say was that the drawbacks of the pills drained not only Choji's chakra severely, but also the biomass in his digestive system to extremely dangerous levels. For an Akamichi, to be completely depleted of their stomach contents, as well as the biomass within their muscles, left them inches away from death. It was incredibly fortunate that the Anbu showed up to retrieve Choji when they did. From what he was told, the doctors had to pump Choji's stomach with enough smashed food materials to keep him alive long enough for his chakra to recharge back up. Honestly, Choji eating himself into a balloon was more for his benefit to regain whatever strength his body needed. Pausing his snacking, Choji looked up from the bento, nodding at Ino. Swallowing, he smiled at the young mind walker. Yeah, Ino, I'm fine. Nothing like my Ka-san's food to help me return to 100%. He cheered, returning to eating, making the blonde sigh, shaking her head. Good grief. Oi, Choji, how about sharing some of that? I'm starving. That food smells a lot better than this disgusting hospital food. Along with Choji, Kiba also shared the room. Laying on the bed placed next to the Akamichi, Kiba was also recovering. While not as messed up from the mission as his friend, Kiba had to have his body healed and checked over by not only his clan but also by a Hyuga. Considering the report of his enemy's ability to somehow merge and control his body like a puppet. Such a strange ability was dangerous, and considering he was one of Orochimaru's minions. Tsunade didn't want there to be any leftover surprises inside his body that could allow for it to be controlled by anyone other than him, or worse, unknowingly controlled by the enemy Sannin. Right now, with his body bandaged up, with an equally bandaged and resting Akamaru on a pillow bed beside his bed, Kiba was glaring annoyingly at the Akamichi, a growl sounding from his stomach signifying his hunger. His brow twitched as he watched Choji go through box after box of food like a man possessed. Seriously dude, share. Swallowing, Choji turned to Kiba, giving an almost teasing smirk. Sorry, Kiba, no can do. I need all the strength I can get. You could at least spare a rice ball, you bastard. Munch, 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 asterisk. Rolling her eyes, Ino looked at the last occupant of the room. Lying in the last bed near the door, either through his strict surgery or exhausted state, Neji was somehow slumbering through all the noise. How the hell can he sleep through all this? She muttered, raising a brow at the sleeping Hyuga. That food smells pretty good. I'm feeling pretty hungry myself. I'll need to remember to visit an Akamichi restaurant once I'm discharged. Neji thought to himself, playing possum as he tried to block out the chatter happening and instead concentrate on his recovery. Shikamaru groaned lightly, shaking his head. So troublesome. Growling at the stubborn Akamichi, Kiba huffed, crossing his arm. Fine, keep your stinking food, I'll just wait till I'm out of here to go to the barbecue joint for some grub. He stated, a large grin spreading across his face. It's only right to celebrate us completing our mission in dragging that bastard Sasuke's ass back here. Ino glared at him. Don't you dare call Sasuke-kun a bastard, you mutt. She shouted at him, getting a glare aimed back from him. Why the hell not? It's his fault the three of us are in the state we're in. He's the one who tried to desert his village to go run off toward that snake. Orochimaru, he's a traitor. He was probably just being compelled by that snake, or he was captured. Sasuke-kun would never willingly run from his home. PFT. Yeah right, ever since the Chunin exam. Sasuke's been acting weirder and more brooding than usual. He practically reeked of dark intentions. Guy knew what he was doing. Joke's on him though, all he got and the end was getting his ass kicked by Naruto of all people. Ha, wish I was there to see that. Kiba exclaimed, laughing, as Ino was growling like a beast, looking seconds away from jumping at the dog user to unleash her full fury. Choji paused in his eating, looking up at Shikamaru, brow raised. Speaking of which, how is Naruto? I'm assuming he at least had some injuries in stopping Sasuke. Shikamaru frowned, thinking, actually, I wasn't told anything about him. All I was told was that Sasuke was successfully brought back. They didn't tell me how Naruto was, or where he is. Finally breaking her death glare at Kiba, Ino huffed, crossing her arms. Knowing that idiot, he somehow escaped the hospital to go drown his face in his disgusting ramen. She said, gagging the thought of eating such greasy food. Shikamaru hummed, pondering. His mind also went to that call his father got about a council meeting. He wondered if it was about the retrieval mission. Suddenly, everyone's attention went to the door as it opened. Stepping in, Team 10's sensei, Sarutobi Asuma, was seen as the bearded man smiled at his three students. Behind him, the forms of a maid and team guy with their senseis followed after him. Choji, how are you feeling? Asuma asked his student, getting a smile from the boy. Great, now that I'm eating. Rolling his eyes good-heartedly, Asuma turned to Shikamaru. Approaching him, he placed his hand on the Chunin's shoulder, smiling proudly at him. Great job on your first true mission as a Chunin, Shikamaru. And a successful one at that. Looking away, Shikamaru sighed, though had evidence of a faint smile. It was nothing but troublesome. Asuma chuckled, patting the teen's shoulder. Well, get ready for more like those. He teased, getting a groan from the Nara. Great tilde. Meanwhile, Team 8 and Team 9 approached their bedridden members. Hinata frowned worriedly as she looked at both her teammate and cousin. Kiba-kun, Neji Nisama, how are you two feeling? Canceling his attempts for rest, Neji sat up with a small groan. Healed or not, sore muscles needed time to heal properly. Letting out a breath, Neji smiled welcomingly at the heiress, nodded in greeting. I am well, Hinata-sama, he said, appreciating the girl's kindness, while also fighting down the feeling of guilt. Rekka. ling his past treatment against her in his misplaced anger. I still have much to atone for. It is thanks to Naruto and Uncle that I now know that my anger was wrong. No matter what, I will make up for my treatment of you. Lady Hinata, he mentally swore as the female Hyuga smiled at him, glad. Kiba huffed, crossing his arms. Speak for yourself, Neji. I'm starving, mainly because someone wouldn't share their food, he states, shooting a glare at Choji, who either ignored it or didn't notice, having returned to finishing off the last few of the bentos he had. Looking at Kiba, Hinata smiled, holding up a bag she had with her. I thought you two would be hungry, so I got you some food. She said timidly, reaching into the bag, pulling out 2 bentos. Seeing them, Kiba cheered, thanking the girl. Awesome. Thanks so much, Hinata. You're a lifesaver. Equally grateful, Neji bowed as much as he could. I am honored, Hinata-sama, he said, making the girl blush in embarrassment at being bowed to, waving him off. Behind her, Kurenai smiled at her adorable student's kindness. Just then, Lee popped up beside Neji's bed, making more than a few of them. Yelp in surprise as the junior green beast gave his teammate a wide, glinting smile and thumbs up. Neji-kun, congratulations on succeeding in defeating your sound nin opponent. Your flames of youth burn as bright as the sun, he shouted happily, until Tenten smacked him upside the head with a twitching brow. Stop screaming, would ya? We're in the hospital, for Kami's sake, she scolded, GL, airing at the sheepish taijutsu user as he apologized. The bun-haired girl's glare then increased in intensity down on him. And you're not off the hook yet, mister. You're still in trouble for IMM. Immediately running off to back the boys up so soon after your surgery. You're lucky you didn't break your bones again. Getting up, Lee rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Hee. Sorry, Tenten, he said, getting a scoff from the weapon mistress, knowing her teammate well enough that it wouldn't be the last time he does reckless things. Thankfully, before she could call him out on it, Guy stopped her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Now, Ten-kun. Let us be grateful that everyone in the team made it back safely, he told her, smiling. Crossing her arms, Tenten looked away, huffing. Chuckling, Guy turned to the Hyuga of his team, his expression turning serious. Neji-kun, no matter your recovery, I want you to take the next few days to rest up. Same with Lee-kun. You both have gotten your first true taste of the dangers of life and death, true shinobi battles, and for that you are just a bit wiser. Learn from your battles, and think about how you can improve yourselves to get stronger. What you have faced is a true first-hand experience in Chunin class missions. While you might not have gotten promoted, I hope this shows you what you will experience once you do, he stated firmly, with Kurenai and Asuma nodding in agreement at their students, looking just as serious as Guy. As Guy said, Shikamaru, learn from your actions, review your mistakes so you can train to improve them. You're a Chunin now, no more lazing about, it's time to get serious, he told his student, making him frown, but nodded. He knew very well that the mission could have just as easily turned bad. Very bad. It was only a miracle that no lives were lost amongst the team. His hands clenched, the worst-case scenario making a shiver go down his spine. So troublesome, but he's right. I was lucky. Next time might not be so. I'll need to speak with Chu-san. I need to get stronger. I have to get stronger. Kiba groaned as he accepted the bento box Hinata offered to him. If Chunin missions are like that one, I'd hate to go on a Jonin mission, he grumbled, opening the box to eat. Neji hummed, eating. It was truly a different experience compared to the average C-rank missions we used to take. So this was how upper-rank missions are. Fascinating. The difference in confrontational situations against true enemy shinobi comp. ARED to mere bandits and the occasional low-rank missing ninja has no comparison. I'll have to up my training. Picking up her bag, Hinata frowned as she looked at the remaining bento inside it. She looked around, not seeing the person she wanted to give the bento to. Is Naruto-kun in another room? She wondered. She had been hoping to see him and know of his state of health. She wasn't the only one to notice the orange-loving Genin's absence. Where is Naruto-san? I had thought he would also be present. If not for recovery, at the very least to check up on his comrades. Shino questioned, nudging his shades. Ino frowned, also noting the lack of someone else. Forehead's not here either. Sheesh. I know you guys aren't her teammates, but she could have at least checked up on ya. She commented, crossing her arms at her friends. Rudeness. The Jonins frowned, recalling that they had not seen much of Kakashi either. Unknown location. Meanwhile, miles away, a young girl stood along the riverbank of a quietly flowing river coursing through a forest. The girl hummed a little tone as she skipped happily down the grassy path, a short fishing rod in her grasp. Behind her, a few feet away, a man and a woman followed after her, walking side by side. The man, muscular with a shaggy beard and short dark brown hair, carrying a large straw basket on his back, with the woman. Long brown hair swaying in the breeze, holding a picnic basket in her gentle grasp. Walking shoulder to shoulder, the couple smiled as they carefully watched after their happy daughter. Miyubi, don't run too far ahead of us, dear. The mother called out, looking over her shoulder. The young girl with shoulder-length dark brown hair with bow-tied pigtails smiled. Hi Tilda, she sang before proceeding to continue skipping on, making her mother sigh, while the father gave a chuckle. Now, Amaki, she's not in any danger. As long as she stays in sight, and doesn't get too close to the riverside cliff, she'll be fine. Her husband said, making the woman shake her head. As a mother, I have a right to worry, Kenshi. Not when she takes after you so much, she said teasingly, making her husband sweat drop, chuckling sheepishly, getting what she meant. As her parents conversed, Miyubi continued on her way, eventually reaching her family's usual fishing spot. A bank opening into the river, with a sand-gravel beach for people to be able to stand closer to the river to catch fish. It also helps those who like to stand on gravelly riverbeds to practice catching fish by hand. Taking her sandals off, the girl carefully stepped into the wet gravel, keeping an eye out for any sharp stones. Her parents wouldn't be happy if she accidentally cut herself. Giggling at the feeling of the cool water between her tootsies, Miyubi took a few steps closer to the passing river as she waited for her parents to get there. Unfortunately, she was old enough to try and catch fish by herself, as they feared her being accidentally pulled into the water again. So, she settled for watching the fish swim past with a big smile on her face. Behind her, she could hear her parents getting closer as she watched a rather large-looking fish go by. Ooh, that one looks like a good one to catch, she commented, looking over her shoulder. San, hurry, I'm coming Tilda, I'm coming, Miyu-chan, Kenshi said jokingly as he helped his wife set up for the picnic. Pouting at her father for taking his time, Miyubi turned back to the river. Just then, something caught her eye. Something shiny as light reflected off it and struck her vision, forcing her to squint from the glare. Using a hand to try and block off the glare, Miyubi did appear through her fingers at what was causing the light to hit her eyes. Blinking, the glare hitting her eyes dimmed enough for her to see. She spotted something floating down the river, heading towards her. As it got closer, she bent down, holding her hand out as the object got closer. Once it was within reach, she picked it up from the water and took a look at it. Huh, she muttered, staring at the object. She recognized it as a headband usually worn by the shinobi that would sometimes pass through her small village. Who would throw away a headband? She muttered curiously, staring at the swirl-like design on the metal plate. Did you say something, Miyu-chan? Kenshi asked, approaching her. Looking over her shoulder, he blinked. What's that you've got there? He asked, gently taking it from her grasp. A headband. Where did you get this? He asked his daughter. Miyubi pointed to the river. I saw it coming down from the river. He raised a brow. Really? Did a shinobi lose it? He muttered, staring down the river in the direction the headband came from. Miyubi also looked up at the river, also wondering. Blinking, Miyubi squinted her eyes. Did she see something? Ellipsis. The young girl tilted her head, seeing what looked like a dark shadow sailing their way. San, I think something's coming, she said, getting her father's attention, as he looked at her. Then back at the river. Soon, he too noticed something in the water. As he squinted his eyes, he didn't notice Miyubi take a few steps closer to the mysterious object. Soon, the object floated closer. Enough to give the two a better visual. What the object turned out to be made the girl let out a sharp, startled cry. There, floating along the river, was a body. Whoever they were, they had their back facing out of the water, with the rest being sunk in, with only what looked like a torn orange attire being seen. "Chu-san," she cried, frightened, quickly running behind her father. With the stunned man standing frozen, unsure of what to do. He's lived long enough to know that this was no doubt the possible corpse of a shinobi, having seen more than his fair share of them throughout his years. He only wished his daughter didn't see her first while she was so young. Still, as the body was about to pass him, he debated on what to do. On one hand, he could simply allow it to go on while he took his family either home or to find another spot to catch fish. On the other hand, he could do the righteous thing, and at the very least give the poor soul a proper burial. Whoever this shinobi was, they at least deserved that much, right? Feeling the firm grip of his daughter's hand on the back of his pants, Kenshi made his choice. With a grip on the body, Kenshi pulled it out of the water, feeling stunned and horrified to learn that the shinobi was just a young teen. It also made him feel both saddened and disgusted, for someone so young to die so soon. Kami, poor kid. Lifting the teen up into his arms, Kenshi carried him towards his stunned wife, who quickly pulled Miyubi to her side, allowing Kenshi the space to place the boy down on the picnic blanket. Stepping back to get a good look at him, as the family gathered around the mysterious shinobi. As Kenshi thought, it was a boy, looking to be in his early to mid-teens. He had wild, messy blonde hair, the brightest hue Kenshi's ever seen really. He had strange markings on his cheeks, looking like the whiskers of a cat. His clothes were tattered, really nothing but torn rags. Looking like he went through a hurricane, along with cuts and bruises showing on his skin through the holes on his shirt. His skin tone seems to have yet turned pale, making the parents figure that he had no doubt just recently gone through some kind of big fight. By the Kami, Amaki muttered, giving the poor child a small prayer, sharing her husband's sadness that someone so young lost their life. Miyubi frowned, looking at her parents then back at the teen. While she didn't fully understand what was happening, being only at the age of 8, she had a feeling that the teen wasn't feeling good. As Kenshi spoke with Amaki on what they'll do to give the shinobi a proper burial, Miyubi slowly approached the teen. Kneeling down at his side, she looked closer at him. Her attention drew to the marking on his cheeks, her young mind desiring to touch them out of curiosity. Slowly, she lifted her hand up, moving it towards his face. Slowly and ever so carefully, her fingers inched closer and closer outside her parents' field of awareness. She bit her lower lip as her fingertip crawled close, bit by bit. Soon, they were about to reach their prize, when, cough, cough, asterisk, ah, ah, with a series of startled shouts, the family of 3 all fell backward, tripping over their feet and legs, as the previously thought to be dead shinobi suddenly began coughing violently. Rolling to their side, vomiting gallons of water from his lungs. Cough, cough, asterisk, continuing to cough as air refilled his lungs, the blonde groaned, rolling to his back, groggy eyes opening halfway. Staring up at the blue sky, said eyes rolling to the side, he looked at the shocked family as they stared wide-eyed at him. Dot, dot, dot. Sorry if I scared you. I've been having a shitty day, Datbeo tilde. The shinobi said, groaning, before his eyes rolled to the back of his head, falling back to unconsciousness, leaving the stunned family. Unknown location with the Rangers. Lord Zedd is back. How is that possible? We thought Zordon's energy wave eliminated all evil in the galaxy. Jason exclaimed, joining the other cries of disbelief. Shocked to hear that the Ranger's old enemy had truly returned from the proverbial grave. Listening to all the mutters and cries of shock, confusion, and disbelief, mostly from the mighty Morphin. Zeo and Space Rangers and all those who took part in the United Alliance of Evil's universal conquest, Rita could only sigh before she held up a hand to try and calm everyone. Thankfully, after a minute, everyone began to simmer down, allowing her the chance to speak. I can understand your confusion and surprise, Rangers, trust me when I say that I went through the same feelings as well. Freddy and I both thought that our past lives had been long behind us. Sadly, it would seem that fate had other opinions. Excuse me, yeah, hi, a voice called out, making everyone turn their heads to stare at a man with short shaggy dark brown hair wearing a yellow shirt and black pants with his index finger held up into the air. Hey, question. Who's this Zedd guy? He asked, having a confused expression. Before he winced as a woman with long pale blonde hair beside him punched him on the shoulder. Don't be an idiot, Dustin. Remember, Lord Zedd was an alien Konku error that fought against the first team of Power Rangers a long time ago. How can you forget, when it was all over the news back then? She scolded the pouting man, while another man with them, dark tanned skin with short dark hair, chuckled softly at his friend's expense. Sheesh, Tori Tilda, sorry, I forgot, Dustin muttered as he rubbed his shoulder to smooth the pain, while the former Blue Wind Ranger simply rolled her eyes at him. Smiling a bit in amusement at the team, Rita then focused back on the task at hand, turning to the whole gathering. The reason for Lord Zedd's resurrection has to do with my husband accidentally coming upon a certain crystal. She explained before she turned towards Mac, nodding to him. Mac, can you explain to everyone what has happened? Blinking in surprise at being put on the spot, Mac looked around as all the Rangers turned in his direction. Sure. Well, clearing his throat for a moment, Mac nodded, holding up his hand. Hey, name's Mac Hartford, Red Overdrive Ranger. Well, I was with Mr. Neilrod during an archaeological dig when some workers came upon some strange crystal buried in the earth. We were investigating it when Mr. Neilrod went closer after the ground under him on the find's edge gave way, bringing him closer to it. There was this bright flash of light, and the next thing I knew, Lord Zedd was there. I tried to stop him when he started attacking, and at first, I seemed to hold the advantage, only for him to start kicking me around. Honestly, I thought he was going to kill me, when Rita, here, appeared, scaring him off. Hearing the tale, Tommy hummed, turning to Rita. What is this crystal? How could it bring Zedd back? Rita frowned, turning to him. What Freddy found. D is known in legends as the Dark Crystal. Legends have it that the Dark Crystal was created from the gathering and crystallization of all the darkness and negative energies from the whole universe. Sorcerers and masters of magic believe that it served as the antithesis of the very energy wave Zordon unleashed all those years ago, the collection of all the evil he was thought to have destroyed, all gathered into a single crystal. If that's true, then Zordon's sacrifice was for nothing. A man muttered angrily, clenching a tight fist so hard it shook. A woman beside him placed a hand on his shoulder. Andros, it is my theory that the dark power of the crystal affected Freddy, taking hold of whatever remnant of Lord Zedd was still within him, empowering it enough that it overtook and possessed Freddy. Swapping his being for Lord Zedd. A woman with shoulder-length blonde hair standing beside Andros frowned. It brought back the darkness buried deep in his heart. She muttered, lifting a hand to grasp her pink and purple mixed-colored shirt over her heart, an uncomfortable feeling crawling down her spine, long since buried memories resurfacing. Jason frowned, not liking the news as he crossed his arms. So Lord Zedd is really back. Rita nodded. Yes, but he is still weakened at the moment. Though for how long, I'm not sure. If the stories of the Dark Crystal are to be believed, Lord Zedd will eventually regain his former strength, and more, as he absorbs even more darkness from living beings and planets, empowering himself. We'll stop him before that happens. Cole Evans, Red Wild Force Ranger, said with his team nodding in agreement, along with all the other Rangers. That's right, Connor said, looking at everyone. I know some of us might not be able to morph anymore. But powers or not, we're still Rangers, and we won't let anyone destroy our planet. As more and more Ranger teams agreed, Rita smiled at everyone. Tommy stepped forward, getting her attention. We stopped Zedd before, we'll do it again. We'll take him down, and save Fred. He told her, making grateful tears gather in the sorceress's eyes. Closing them, she took a deep breath to gather herself. Once she did, she looked at everyone. I thank you all for your offer to stop Zedd. However, I'm afraid that Zedd's target might be more than just this planet. Knowing him as I do, he will seek to conquer the whole universe as he did so long ago. Only this time, his power will become too great for just one team of Rangers to handle if not stopped in time. It'll take all of you at once to beat him. Adam Park, former 2nd and Black, Zeo Green, and Green Turbo Ranger, frowned. How? Many of us lost our ability to become Power Rangers. Rita smiled, shaking her head. While it might be true that you can no longer morph, the power gifted to you to become Rangers has never truly left you. That power has always been deep within you this whole time. And that power is what the universe needs to stop Zedd. But how? Kimberly asked. By passing that power to the ones chosen to stop Zedd's evil. Rita said, surprising everyone. Tommy raised a brow at her. What do you mean? Before I learned of Zedd's return, I had a vision. Within that vision, came a glimpse of the future, and a single sentence echoed through my mind. Rita said, closing her eyes in remembrance. When people shed tears when the universe falls into the hands of the heartless, saviors chosen by the shining stars, chosen by the will of the cosmos. Heroes of justice and bravery, will appear to save the universe. She then opened her eyes, looking at the listening gathering. These words were spoken to me by beings of mighty power and wisdom. Rita speaks the truth. At the sudden, booming voice, everyone tensed. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared, temporarily blinding everyone. After a moment of regaining their sights back, they opened their eyes. Only to widen them as they stared at 3 new occupants at the location. They were Rangers, but different. Standing right in the middle of the large group, what app? ARED to be 3 Power Rangers stood before them. However, their bodies seemed to be made up of constantly shifting, crackling energy, with the same thing being said about their appearances. These Rangers depicted the colors of red, blue, and yellow respectively, yet their forms constantly shifted between the different incarnations of the Rangers throughout the years. Mighty Morphin. To Dino Thunder. To Samurai. To Zeo. To Wild Force. So on, and so forth, these beings shifted between Ranger forms of their respective colors. Who are you? Tommy asked, staring in awe at these beings. The mysterious red being stared at Tommy, their form taking that of the mighty Morphin Red Ranger. We are the emissaries 3. Are you gods? Cole asked in wonder and awe, feeling the wave of energy emitting from the 3. No, the blue emissary, in the form of the blue samurai ranger, spoke. We are not gods. We simply follow and obey the will of the Morphin Grid. Task, Ed with keeping the grid balanced and controlled. The yellow emissary said, in the form of the yellow Zeo Ranger. And most of all, uncorrupted. The red emissary said, now the red Dino Ranger. The Morphin Grid is the endless stream of life and light throughout the universe and beyond. It stretches across space and time. The power it holds is endless, as long as life and freedom remain throughout existence. Lord Zedd threatens that balance, and therefore threatens the grid. His return is a paradox not meant to occur. What do you mean? Jason asked. The red emissary, Red Lightspeed Ranger, turned to him. The existence of the Dark Crystal was never meant to be on Earth. This error in foresight had escaped our notice, and as such threatened the timestream and all life in existence. As such, the grid has seen fit to go against its own placed rules, and changed history to ensure that the stability and balance of the universe are upheld. The blue emissary, Blue Jungle Fury Ranger, said. Together, the 3 beings held up their hands. The environment around began to warp and shift, taking everyone by surprise. Shifting from a mass of colors, the area became that of deep space. Shining stars clattering the darkness around them. Silently, everyone watched as the stars began to glow brighter and brighter, before lines began spreading from them, connecting to each other. And forming images. Those are the constellations, Billy pointed out, as everyone stared at the star images in awe. Just then, the constellations began to glow with color, from red, to blue, to pink, green, orange, and so on. Suddenly, the glows blinded everyone as they shielded their eyes. Groaning from the light, Tommy tried to gaze through it, blinking when he faintly saw figures standing within the light, their appearances shadowed. Breaking from the flow of time, a never-before-seen team of Power Rangers has been chosen to protect the universe and all life throughout the stars from the approaching darkness never before met. Residing on a far-off planet, these chosen warriors will meet various challenges and turmoil that will put their hearts to the test on whether they have what it takes to become heroes. Soon, the light vanished, and everyone found themselves back in their previous space. Tommy looked at the emissaries. What can we do to help? Konoha. Hokage Tower. Behind her desk, Tsunade sat. However, she was not currently at work on paperwork or anything. In fact, said papers were currently splattered all around the floor. Having been angrily pushed off by the irritated Cage shortly after returning from that accursed council meeting. Just thinking about the events of the meeting, and all that she had heard of what the bastard Danzo had done made Tsunade grit her teeth in fury. Oh, how much she wanted to murder the Warhawk right then and there. Unfortunately, said bastard had immunity from his position as elder, preventing her from unleashing her righteous fury. And to top it off, she had to hear a plethora of excuses coming out of the mouths of both Mitokado and Utatane on how they had no knowledge of their fellow elders' actions. She had half a mind to call their bullshit, but she knew how sneaky that fossil could be. Even go so far as going right over his fellow council members' heads. Honestly, between Danzo and Orochimaru, Tsunade didn't know which one was the true snake in the grass. Good Kami, how could everything turn out so wrong, so fast? She muttered to herself through her hands covering her face. Hearing the sound of something being placed on her desk, Tsunade groaned. Shizune, if it's more papers, I'm throwing you out of the window. She threatened, slowly lifting her head up. To her surprise, it wasn't more paperwork. Instead, a tall bottle of sake stood before her. Her eyes rolling up, she stared at the dark-haired woman who gave her a soft smile, her eyes holding great sadness and understanding. Silently, the Sannin returned her sad smile, accepting the drink as her apprentice placed 2 cups on the desk. For a couple of minutes the two women shared a silent drink. Both lamenting about the unfortunate situation their favorite knucklehead was put in. If he was still alive, that is. And honestly, given his current placement as a missing nin, to be captured and dragged back for Danzo's corruption. They were unsure if they wished he truly was dead just to be free from this nightmare. What are we going to do, Tsunade-sama? Dick finally asked after a moment of silence. Placing her cup down with a hard thud, Tsunade sighed heavily, looking at her apprentice with tired eyes. Her eyes gently moved to behind Shizune, staring at the hanging portraits of the past Hokages, lingering on the portrait of Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto's father. She wondered how Minato and Kushina would have taken the news of our own son being labeled as a missing ninja to be turned into Danzo's puppet pet. Oh, who am I kidding? Kushina would not hesitate to try and rip Danzo in half. Minato would likely let her without a fight, she thought, closing her eyes, idly praying to her deceased predecessors and clansmen, both Senju and Uzumaki, to give her strength. Honestly, I don't know, Shizune. Naruto's bell as a nuke is approved by the daimyo himself, along with him being to be turned to Danzo upon his capture. It'll be hard to set up an argument against him. It could very well mark me on the act of treason. All we can do is hope that if Naruto is alive, he runs. Shizune frowned. There has to be something we can do. Gritting her teeth, Tsunade angrily scratched her head. Damn it, I don't know. Damn that Danzo. When the hell did he talk to the daimyo? How have I not heard of it beforehand? Maybe Jiraiya-sama can do something. Isn't Naruto his apprentice? Isn't there some rule about forced action against a high-ranking shinobi's apprentice? Shizune said, begging. Tsunade clicked her teeth. Against the order of the Lord himself, laws can only bend so much. Still, you might be right. There has to be something we can use to thwart Danzo's plans. I'll send an immediate message to that pervert to return to the village right now. I'll also call for Shikaku. We'll need that Nara brain of his to think up plans to keep Naruto safe. Shizune nodded in agreement before a thought came to her. Should we also inform Naruto's friends? Maybe they can also help. Tsunade frowned, crossing her arms as she sat back in her chair. Perhaps, although I'll have to speak with the clan heads. Given that the kids are all heirs, something like this, going against the daimyo, it's on tense grounds. We could all be labeled with charges of high treason, she said, before letting out a heavy sigh. First the Uchiha brat tries to run off to Orochimaru, forcing me to send off a team of fresh Chunin and a bunch of genin, and now Naruto's on the metaphorical chopping block while he's missing. Things are really hitting rock bottom, aren't they? Frowning, Shizune stood up from her chair, moving around the desk to place a comforting hand on her teacher's shoulder. I'm sure things will get better, Tsunade-sama, she said, though her tone didn't hold much belief in her own words. Having a feeling things were going to get possibly worse before they got better. Tsunade's frown deepened, looking up at the Hokage pictures. I hope so, Shizune. I really do. Just then, a knock came from the door. Tsunade frowned, not in the mood for visitors, and was about to tell whoever it was to go away when the door opened and the clan heads entered. Tsunade and Shizune watched as Sume, Hiyashi, Shibi, Shikaku, Choza, and Inoichi gathered before her. Can I help you? The blonde woman asked, raising a brow. Shikaku stepped forward, sighing. Hokage-sama, we need to talk. Konoha Hospital. Sasuke's room. Silence filled the room with the air being so tense it could make the windows shake. The only sounds that could be heard were the occasional passing steps outside the room and the ticking of the clock on the wall. Only 2 occupants were in the room, though neither currently looked at the other, one unsure of what to say, while the other just wanted to be alone. Haruno Sakura frowned, staring at her hands placed on her lap, fingers interlocked in a tight grip. She bit the bottom of her lip, taking a short glance at the silent Uchiha sitting on the bed before her. For a moment, she opened her mouth to speak but quickly shut it, looking away. What could she say? When the last the two spoke to each other was on the night the Uchiha first attempted to abandon the village, leaving everything and everyone he knew behind. Leaving his team behind. Leaving her behind. And he did so without a second thought. Right after he knocked her out. But now, he's back. Brought back by their other teammate, the so-called dead last and loser of their graduation class. The one everyone thought to have no skill whatsoever. The one everyone underestimated. Now they knew better. For it was that so-called dead last who managed to bring back their runaway golden boy, as was stated by Kakashi. That reported victory left an impact on the two, making them think hard about it. To Sakura, it meant that he kept his promise to her. He did what she was too weak to do, and stopped Sasuke before it was too late. He did what he said he'd do and brought Sasuke back to her. It made her smile. Maybe I'll finally treat him to a date when I see him as a thank you. Just this once. To Sasuke, however, it meant that once again, he was beaten in power by someone who was supposed to be weaker than him. No, since their mission in Wave, Sasuke knew Naruto wasn't weak. Not after managing to defeat that false hunter Nin when he couldn't. Sasuke wasn't blind to Naruto's strength. He wouldn't have labeled Naruto as his true rival otherwise. No, Naruto was anything but weak. It was only the difference in their strengths that truly angered the Uchiha. The measurement between them. One he had once thought to be about equal, now he saw that he gaps may just be bigger than he thought. Just thinking about it infuriated Sasuke, making him clench his fists tightly. Naruto, how could you possibly understand? You never experienced losing your own family. Having them taken from you by your own kin. Don't pretend to understand. I may not understand what it's like to grow up with a family, to lose them like you have. But you're part of Team 7. And it's like a family to me, damn it. That's why, I'm not letting you just run off to that snake. I'll bring you home. Even if I have to break every bone in your body to do it. Even with the power given to me, Naruto still managed to beat me. To stop me. Why? How? How is he always getting stronger than me? Sasuke. If you wish to kill me, get angry. Use that anger to get stronger. Strong enough to gain eyes like mine. Itachi said, his Sharingan eyes morphing into a new shape. Itachi. Naruto. Why do they keep getting so far ahead of me? What am I doing wrong? Sasuke mentally raged, his quaking hands clenched so hard he drew blood as his nails cut into his palms. Sasuke. Sakura. Just be quiet. You're annoying. Her mouth snapping close with a flinch. Sakura kept her eyes down. The coldness in his voice made her eyes sting with gathering tears. Glaring at the bedsheets, Sasuke thought about what he should do now. What could he do? He highly doubted he would be able to try and escape again, no doubt currently being on constant watch. His chance to gain power from Orochimaru was lost. All because of that idiot. Why did he have to meddle? Why can't he understand that this is something I have to do? So you're just running towards Orochimaru. Don't be such a moron, Tem. He doesn't care about helping you. You want to get stronger. Train in the village like you're supposed to do. You have a whole team that can help you. Stop being so blind and trust in the people around you. You idiot. This village isn't enough. I need true power to take on someone like Itachi, and only Orochimaru can get me to his level. Why? Sakura bit her lip hard enough to draw blood, her shoulders shaking. Why would you leave? What about Team 7? What about me? Sasuke stayed silent, merely raising his eyes to glare at the wall ahead of him, not giving his pink-haired teammate a single glance. Sasuke, don't you understand what you were doing? Were you really willing to abandon everything? You wouldn't understand. Then explain it to me. Sakura shouted, her head snapping up to look at the Avenger. Tears streaming down her face. Help me understand. Gritting his teeth, feeling his anger reaching its peak, Sasuke shot his gaze towards her, his Sharingan forcibly activated by his emotions with what limited chakra he had left in his injured body. How could you possibly understand, Sakura? He roared, making the girl jump, stunned by the fury in his red eyes. How could someone like you, who goes on every day all happy and carefree, possibly understand what I've endured? What I've lost? You could never understand people like me and Naruto. Who had been forked to live life with a hole in our hearts, a constant ache that can never be soothed. For Kami's sake, Sakura, grow up. Stop living a fantasy and start being the fucking ninja you're supposed to be. Sakura sat there, silent, her eyes wide and overflowing with unending tears. She stared at Sasuke, who kept his fierce glare on her with the intensity of the sun, gritting his teeth hard enough to crack them. Stop being such an annoyance, and grow up. You will never understand me, Sakura. He hissed out. Without another word, Sakura shot out of her chair, causing it to fall back, turned around, and proceeded to run out of the room, her tears falling to the floor behind her. All the while, Sasuke looked after her, uncaring. Uncaring of how his words affected her. Uncaring if he broke her heart. Uncaring about anything, not when his goal of getting stronger than Itachi had been ripped from his grasp. As he turned to return to glare at the wall, the sound of the door opening once more reached his ears. Yet he did not look towards it. He idly blinked, uncaring for Kakashi's presence beside him. The one-eyed Jonin stared at his student with a hard look. We need to talk, Sasuke. Hokage Tower. Naruto's missing, Ino shouted, staring at the Hokage with wide eyes. Currently, her team and herself, along with teams Kurenai and Guy, were gathered before Tsunade with Shizune beside her, as well as the clan heads, all of them packed into the spacious room. The only ones not accounted for were Team Kakashi, who were excused for the moment, the Uchiha being technically under arrest in his hospital room. What the hell happened? Didn't Naruto bring back Sasuke? So how the hell could he be missing? Kiba demanded, before wincing as he held his sides, still having bandages wrapped around his form under his clothes. All the rookies had been unexpectedly called to the Hokage's office, and while he had given his own belief that those who were part of the mission to bring back Sasuke were going to get praised for their success, maybe a reward, he was not expecting what they were just told. Tsunade narrowed her eyes in a heavy glare, making the genin shiver. Thankfully, her glare was not aimed at them, but at the mental image of a certain warhawk. There was a complication in the climax of your mission. While Naruto may have successfully beaten the Uchiha when he tried to resist capture, he was unexpectedly attacked in his weakened state. Thankfully, he managed to avoid capture. However, pausing, she took a deep breath to control her anger, her hands clenching. Reports from Kakashi, who had arrived on the scene, stated that the cliff Naruto was on when he faced his would-be capturers broke, him falling into the ocean below before Kakashi could get to him. Hinata stood shaking, eyes widened, horrified. So Naruto could be Dadia. Kurenai quickly held the young N by the shoulders when she staggered on her feet. Hinata, the woman said sadly. Tsunade frowned at the grief-struck young woman. We don't really know. I for one know Naruto's faced worse. But given his reported no doubt weakened state at the time after going through multiple battles back to back, we just don't know. All we can do is hope he's alright, and that he winds up somewhere safe. She stated, her hands shaking at the mere thought of the worst possibility. She narrowed her eyes. However, I'm afraid things for Naruto are currently worse than I'd like. Asuma narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? Taking a deep breath, Tsunade proceeded to give the occupants a paraphrased summary of the council meeting. Needless to say, no one was happy. A missing ninja, Ino and Choji both exclaimed, shocked. Neji narrowed his eyes in a glare. Why would the council agree to label Naruto-san such a thing when he was unrightfully attacked? It was not by his choice that he deserted the mission. That's right. This is complete bullshit. Hiba roared furiously. Simmer down there, pup. The council didn't agree to shit. Tsun states with a harsh glare at her son. Though she shared his anger at the situation Danzo put them in. Shikamaru looked toward his father. What happened? The elder Nara crossed his arms with a sigh. One of the elder councilmen, Shimura Danzo, apparently had a meeting with the Fire Lord without anyone knowing. Whatever they spoke about, the daimyo gave Danzo special permission to have Naruto trained under him. Unfortunately, Danzo's training methods aren't your normal routines. They are the type that will leave its victims nothing but soulless husks. Shibi nodded, knowing well enough of Danzo's root training and its aftereffects. Given how he had been forced to give his adopted son, Torun, to the man years ago. While he hadn't seen Torun since, the connection between their insects had given him Ino. Have an understanding of what Torun was going through. Not a day went by that he didn't regret his decision. Ino frowned, having a cold feeling in her gut. Why would this Danzo guy want Naruto? She asked, wondering why the man would need to get permission from the daimyo for Naruto of all people. The adults all shared a frown, unsure of what to say. Seeing this, however, Neji narrowed his eyes. He thought about Naruto, recalling all he knew about him, few as it was really. Something then clicked. Does it have anything to do with Naruto's strange chakra? He asked, making all those who knew of the Kyuubi tense. While the others looked confused. Naruto-kun's chakra, what about it? Lee asked. Neji frowned, keeping his eyes on the Hokage and clan heads. During our match in the Chunin exams, after I blocked all of Naruto's chakra points, I saw with my Byakugan a strange red chakra surrounding Naruto, popping his points free. I've never seen chakra like that before. It was powerful, and dark. Thinking about it further, I vaguely recall having seen as if there was something in his chakra. It almost looked like a creature. The clan heads all looked at each other, frowning. Tsunade had a heavy expression on her face. Closing her eyes, she sighed. I have no choice. If I'm to ensure Naruto's kept safe and out of Danzo's grip, I need these kids to know the truth. Hopefully, they're smart enough to not hate Naruto. Kami, I hope so. Alright, listen up. She stated, a firm look in her eyes and a serious expression on her face as she leaned forward. Linking her hands together, what you're all about to hear is extremely sensitive information. No one, absolutely no one, outside this room can know. Is that understood? All of the rookies were silent, standing at attention, almost nervous about what kind of information they were about to be given, but they nodded all the same. Staring at them hard for a moment longer, Tsunade nodded. Then I'll tell you all the whole truth. But I'd suggest you all stay close to the wall, because it's not going to be a pleasant story. And so for the next hour, Tsunade told the rookies the truth about the events of the Kyuubi's attack, about the 9 tails being sealed within Naruto by the 4th, explaining what a Jinchuriki is, as well as what that means for every village in the elemental nations. She spoke of Danzo, and his limited personality and backstory, helping paint a better picture of the situation they were facing. She explained her theories about what Danzo might seek to accomplish through Naruto under his thumb. Most of all, she revealed the dark history Naruto lived through growing up as told to her by Jiraiya during one of their drinking nights. She also spoke about the amazing accomplishments he faced when she and Jiraiya battled Orochimaru and Kabuto. Making sure the young ones fully understood that, no matter what Naruto held, he was not the Kyuubi, but the lovable, amazingly annoying genin they all knew. Needless to say, the young genin plus one chunin were given a wide and shocking awakening about their idiotic blonde friend. Learning more about him than they ever had before. For a moment no one spoke after Tsunade finished talking. Hinata backed up to the wall in disbelief, using it to keep herself standing, while the others stood still with eyes wide and unblinking. One thing was for sure, they were never going to see Uzumaki Naruto the same way again. An hour later, Tsunade sighed heavily as she tried to focus on the paperwork placed on her desk. After revealing the truth of Naruto's status as the container of the thought-to-be-dead Kyuubi, Tsunade, not quite so subtly, threatened the Ong shinobi to not think of Naruto as something he wasn't, before allowing everyone to leave, saying she would call them back when she was ready and had a clearer mind to come up with a course of action. However, with said mind a jumbled mess of fears, sadness, worry, and anger over the lack of knowledge of Naruto's current location, or his state of health, it was hard for her to do so. For the 100th time that day, she cursed Danzo and his shadowy actions. If it would not put her in a bad position with the daimyo and threaten her position as Hokage, something she needed to hold if she wanted to try and keep Naruto safe, she would have murdered that walking corpse when she had the chance. With her grip on the pen shaking, she did not care when it snapped in half. With a groan, she uncaringly tossed it onto the top of the desk, leaning back in her chair. How could everything have gone so wrong? She wondered. She questioned how Danzo had even managed to visit the fire daimyo without anyone even knowing. How could the daimyo even agree to put Naruto under Danzo's so-called training? It didn't help matters when it's been made apparent that he did all of this behind the backs of his fellow elders. After his announcement was made, both Homura and Kaharu profusely informed her that they knew nothing of it. She was skeptical to believe them, knowing neither elders were particularly fond of her placement as Cage and occasional dismissal of their so-called advice. However, as reluctant as she was to admit it, she believed their word. It seems that Danzo tended to go behind even their backs at times. If Tsunade were to give her personal opinion, she believed Danzo to be even more of a snake than even Orochimaru himself. With Orochimaru, she at least had some idea on his methods and actions from their many decades together back when they were a team. With Danzo, she had nothing. That crippled man was a high definition of shinobi, always lingering in the shadows, planning, scheming. Even her Anbu had trouble catching onto any evidence of his scheme. Which begged the question, why reveal his so-called disbanded route so suddenly? His excuse for reinstating that group to Tsunade was absolute bull. Danzo always had a plan for his actions. Always. So, what was his end goal? Besides having Naruto as a weapon. Narrowing her eyes, Tsunade swore that she would find out Danzo's plan, one way or another. Just then, the sound of sliding reached her ears. Instantly knowing what the source was, Tsunade turned her head to her side behind her, and lo and behold, her Gamma Sennin teammate was spotted climbing into her office like the idiot that he was. Now, normally her teammate's antics would always annoy but secretly amuse her. However, right now she was in no mood for games. Oblivious about the blonde Cage's inner peril, or of the passing events, Jiraiya casually climbed into the Hokage office through the window, giving her his goofy smile. Hey, Haim, how are things? You haven't started getting wrinkles from the job, have ya? He asked, not seeing her eye twitch as her anger grew hotter. Ignorant of that, Jiraiya scratched the back of his head with a laugh. Sorry I haven't been around lately. Had to check on my spy network. Also had to figure out a training plan for Naruto for when I take him on a multi-year training trip. Speaking of the brat, how is he? Still annoying the crap out of ya. Man, each day that kid reminds me more and more of Kushi. Shut it. Instantly, Jiraiya snapped his mouth shut, freezing as he heard the ice-cold tone in Tsunade's voice. He was very familiar with an angry Tsunade, an annoyed Tsunade, a drunk, sad infuriated Tsunade. But this was different. Looking at the woman, Jiraiya noticed the emotions in her eyes, the raging storm within them, a sight he had only seen 2 times before from her in his life. As fast as a blink, Jiraiya turned stone cold serious. What happened? Konoha Hospital, Sasuke's room. We need to talk, Sasuke. Sasuke said nothing, not even sparing his former teacher a glance. He had nothing to say. He had no regrets about trying to leave the village and go to Orochimaru. If that snake could really grant him the necessary power to kill Itachi and make him pay for the complete murder of their whole clan, he would take it. Not to say he didn't wish his confrontation with Naruto didn't go differently. The memory of what transpired made his right hand twitch. The very hand that had pierced a Chidori right through his chest. If he was to be honest, to be truthful about his intentions, he didn't intend to kill Naruto. Beat Naruto until he could no longer try and stop him, yes, but not kill. Severing their bond, out of absolute necessity, yes. If he was to truly accept the power given to him through the curse mark, to grow stronger to kill his brother, he needed to ensure that nothing held him back. To sever his connection to the village, to Team 7, to Naruto. To ensure that there would be no mental obstacles in his road to accomplishing his life goal. All options he would do and accept, short of fully eliminating his teammate. There would be no desired gain from it. Doing so would be following Itachi's advice. Gaining power through the murder of his closest friend. No, not like that. He would not follow Itachi's path. Instead, he would find his own way in unlocking the Mangekyo Sharingan. Unfortunately, doing so was easier said than done thanks to that knucklehead. That idiot. Why couldn't he have just let me go? Why did he have to be too stupid? Sasuke mentally raged, wanting nothing more than to find that idiot and choke the stupidity out of his brain. Impossible as such a task would be. As the Uchiha was in his thoughts, Kakashi silently stared at him, his lone eye narrowed as he also thought about what he should do. Sasuke's attempted desertion has made Kakashi come to realize the mistakes he had been making. Mistakes with Sasuke, mistakes with Team 7, mistakes with himself. He had been foolish to know. He only think that a scolding would have been all that was required to get the Uchiha to let go of his anger and jealousy, but also to leave him alone, where apparently he had soon gotten a visit by Orochimaru's forces. He should have known better. He should have been more cautious. His failure to keep an eye on Sasuke has allowed him to be persuaded into leaving the village. His failure had even tended to the following day when he had left for a given mission, foolishly trusting Sasuke not to make any rash decisions or get into trouble. He was such an idiot, and as such, paid dearly for it. Now, he may have lost not only one of his students but also the son of his sensei and older sister figure. He could just see the disappointed expressions Minato and Kushina had, aimed down upon him from the paradise lands up above. Along with similar expressions on his deceased teammates and father, all further pushing him down the ocean of guilt he sank in. Why can I only seem to get those important to me killed? Am I truly that cursed? He thought, closing his eyes to take a moment to breathe deeply to calm his nerves. He'll spend his day in front of the memorial stone, drowning in his negativity, later. Right now, he had to discipline his troublesome student. Back when I first decided to pass you 3, I gave you all a piece of advice. A mantra, a passage to hopefully live by. At the time, I had hoped you would all take those words to heart. To always remember them, burn them into your minds for the rest of your days. To let it guide you all down your path towards becoming an exceptional shinobi to the village. Do you recall the words, Sasuke? He asked his student. So, he wants to be stubborn. All right, in the ninja world, those who break the rules are trash. But those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash. Those words are not something I've simply decided to make up, Sasuke. They were in fact words passed on to me by a dear friend. Someone who, like how you saw Naruto, I saw as someone not worth my time. An obstacle distracting me daily with his antics. An annoyance. A loser. I was wrong to think that, only I was too late to realize it. When that friend decided to save me from being crushed, sacrificing his own life in the process. Because of my lack of focus, I lost someone dear to me, a valued ally and friend. The only thing I have left of him is his memory, and the eye he chose to grant me. He stated, finally getting a reaction out of Sasuke, as the team glanced his way out of the corner of his eye. Making Kakashi give a short nod. That friend. His name was Uchiha Obito. One of your clansmen long ago. You want to know the ironic part? Even since that day, I constantly blamed myself for his death. I still do. I had always hoped to find some way to make up for my failure, to pay him back for his sacrifice. When the Uchiha massacre happened, and you were the only survivor, I had believed that if I could train the last Uchiha in Konoha, to be the teacher to you that Obito could have been had he lived, perhaps that would have made up for his death. As such, I focused my attention on you, training you as best I could. Maybe that was a mistake. He muttered at the end, his mind flashing back to the Chunin exam, and how he had unintentionally rejected Naruto's hopeful request for training. Now realizing that he could have worded it another way, as while Naruto did eventually get training under Jiraiya, his actions as Naruto's teacher were less than grand. In my foolishness, I had imprinted Obito's legacy on you, making excuses to compare you with him, when in reality, you are more like me, just as Naruto is more like Obito than I was too blind to see. Those words got a glare from Sasuke, who finally turned his head to stare straight at Kakashi. We have nothing in common, Kakashi. He hissed. Kakashi faced his glare, sighing. I beg to differ. Like you, I have lost several loved ones young. Losing them from events I was unable to prevent. Events I was too weak to stop. I've lost so many people. It's a miracle I can still function. I've lost my father, who took his own life after facing endless scorn for failing an important mission to save his own teammates, if you'll believe it. He even faced ridicule for his actions by the very teammates he saved, before being unable to handle the pressure and committing seppuku as a way to atone himself. He said, giving a hollow chuckle, recalling the act when he first discovered his father's body in their home, becoming a large part of his future trauma that shaped him into who he was today. A broken man. Then came the Third Shinobi War, where I've grown to view my teammates, who I've seen as nothing but obstacles in my duties, as true friends I could cherish. However, life is unforgiving, Sasuke. It is cruel and wicked. I've lost both my teammates, one because of my failure, the other by my own hands. He said, surprising Sasuke, who stared at the Jonin, whose shoulders sagged with revealed guilt, displaying an image no. He is the strong shinobi what known 1,000 jutsu, but a man who was weighed down by the sea of loss and weight of the whole world on his back. Closing his uncovered eye, Kakashi shook his head. Before I even reach adulthood, I've lost so many precious people, so many loved ones, it had become unbearable to handle. No sane human could. More than once I'd toyed with taking my own life, anything to make the pain go away. However, before I even could go through the act, I was saved by my sensei, and someone I grew to see as an older sister. He said, smiling slightly at the memory of Minato and Kushina. In the darkest night, they have become my shining star, illuminating me. They saved me. They were there through all of my losses, comforting me with affection and words. When I had no one left, they became my last family. My anchor in life. Sasuke frowned, his mind through memories of his childhood, of the people of his clan he saw every morning, of every dinner he shared with his family. Tense as they were at times, but still enjoyable. He remembered the love-filled smile his mother would give him every morning. The subtle and few, but still proud-filling nods his father would give him when he managed to accomplish his training. Times Itachi would poke him on the head every time Sasuke would ask him for training or to take him with him and the older Uchiha had to leave on a mission. He then recalled when all those happy times would come crashing down when the night of the massacre happened. Recalling the feeling of shock, horror, and panic when he first came upon the endless corpses of his clan on the compound street. How the feeling only grew when he ran home, only to discover the bodies of his parents on the floor, Itachi right behind them, holding a bloody sword. The feelings of anger, rage, and betrayal he felt when Itachi told him that it was him who killed their clan, and why he did it. To test himself. Itachi killed their clan, their family, for power and to test himself. What I have is not a dream, because I will make it a reality. I'm going to restore my clan, and kill a certain someone. Recalling his own words the day Team 7 introduced themselves, Sasuke clenched his hands into tight fists. That's right. He was going to avenge his clan. Avenge everyone Itachi took from him. To make Itachi pay for what he has done. It was no dream, it was a life goal. Seeing the storm of emotions and thoughts his student was going through, Kakashi shook his head, wondering if it was too late to save him from the darkness. Sadly, Kakashi continued, getting Sasuke's attention. Taking a deep breath, Kakashi let out a heavy sigh. My life of loss didn't end. Because years later, the Kyuubi no Kitsune suddenly appeared and attacked the village, he said, seeing that he had Sasuke's full attention, no doubt wondering where he was going with this. I won't bore you with knowledge, yo. You no doubt already learned in the academy. However, what you might not know are of the many deaths and losses that occurred on that night. I don't think I've ever told you kids before. Of my teacher. His name was Namikaze Minato. You know him better by his title, the Yondaime Hokage. He said, shocking Sasuke, whose eyes widened a bit. Kakashi nodded. That's right, and you very well know what has happened in the climax of his battle with the Kyuubi. The Yondaime gave his very life to defeat the beast. However, what many don't know is that another brave person also gave their life to stop the Kyuubi. A brave and incredible kunoichi. The one I had looked up to as a big sister. As such, on that night, I'd lost the last people precious to me. On that night, I truly became alone in this world. He finished, shoulder slumping, hands clenching. Sasuke sat there, silent, only looking at the masked man, understanding in his eyes. For all of their time together, Sasuke had never really known much of the Jonin apart from his name and legend. At that moment, he possibly knew more about him than possible many, if not every person in the village. He also could see what Kakashi meant about the two of them being more alike than he thought. Both have suffered great losses, enough that it destroyed their childish view of the world, at such young ages. Turning his gaze back to his lap, Sasuke stared at his hands, thinking over everything. Everything he just learned about Kakashi. Everything the man had gone through that had shaped him to who he was that day. A lone thought floated through his head. Is that my future? It doesn't have to be. Kakashi spoke, getting a surprised look from Sasuke, wondering if his thoughts were too obvious. I may have said that we are very similar, Sasuke. But just because we have both experienced many losses, it doesn't mean you have to follow my example. It is not a pleasant road to travel down, Sasuke. It's one of the big reasons why I admittedly focused so much on you, training you more than I should. To prevent you from becoming like me, Sasuke. When I first met you, Naruto, and Sakura, I didn't think much of you three in the beginning. All I saw were a couple of children not ready for the lifestyle of being a shinobi. Honestly, at the time, I truly wanted to fail you three. If only to protect you from the horrors this life brings. However, when I saw the three of you willing to face consequences by feeding each other, I felt something, a chance of a new beginning that my old team wasn't given. Thinking about it, it honestly scares me how similar you three were to my old teammates and I. The prodigy, the smart happy girl, and the hyperactive knucklehead. I thought that this was perhaps my saving grace after all the loss I've endured. My second chance, Sasuke. Team 7 wasn't a burden to you. It was your strength, your anchor from the darkness. You know that. Glancing away, Sasuke said nothing. However, the clenching of the sheets showed his battling emotions. Frowning, Kakashi shook his head. Every shinobi suffers through loss, Sasuke. What matters most is if you have the strength to decide. Will you find a source of light to lift you up from the darkness? Or will you allow yourself to drown in its waves? Think about it, cause you aren't going anywhere. With that said, Kakashi turned, making his way to the door. With a hand on the handle, the man paused. Just know this, Sasuke. You are not alone. No matter your actions, Sakura and I are still willing to be here for you when you're ready to allow your mask to drop. You forgot about the idiot. Normally, Kakashi would have chuckled at Sasuke's attitude towards his obvious rival. However, with the truth known, Kakashi didn't. Your actions have caused more than intended consequences, Sasuke. Because of threats in the shadows, Naruto is currently missing. Possibly dead for all we know. With his piece said, the man walked out of the room, leaving behind a wide-eyed Sasuke processing the given information. Wait, what? Missing? What are you talking about? What happened? Kakashi, answer me. What happened to Naruto? Kakashi. Unknown location. Cabin. from her kneeling position beside the set mattress in the spare bedroom. Miyubi watched as her mother placed a freshly dampened cloth onto the whiskered boy's forehead. He hadn't regained consciousness since he coughed up all that water from his lungs. After her father brought him home to check his wounds, in which he proceeded to take off the boy's soaked jacket, pants and sandals while her mother got a fire started, the young girl watched silently. As her parents checked the older boy over, amazingly enough, the stranger didn't have that many injuries to clean. Apart from signs of a starting fever, no doubt from being in the cold water for who knows how long, the boy with the strange whiskers was in perfect health. However, they were unsure when he would wake up. According to her mother, the teen seemed heavily exhausted and needed a lot of rest. As her mother stood to check up on the teen's wet clothes, Miyubi stayed kneeling beside him, staring at him with curiosity and wonder. Where did he come from? Was he a shinobi? He had to be. He had a metal headband. And only ninjas had those. Was he in a fight? Was he strong? Did he fight strong bad guys? Was that why he looked hurt? Why did he have whiskers? Was he part cat? They were cute. She wanted to touch them. Could she? It was all right, right? Just one quick poke. Her mama wouldn't know. It'll be really. Miyubi, don't stand over the young man. I need a fresh towel to replace the compress. So can you go get me one? Amaki asks her daughter while hanging the last of the boy's soaked clothes. Eep. Jumping back, her hand previously reaching forward, the embarrassed girl quickly stood up. Her face dusting red. Hi, mama. Moving quickly, she went and got a clean towel for the woman, still a bit red in the cheeks from being caught. Smiling a bit teasingly at her daughter, she nudged her head. Come help me take these clothes outside to dry. Following her mother, Miyubi paused at the doorway, glancing back at the slumbering teen. I wonder who he is. And where he came from, she thought, before running towards her mother. Unseen by her, under the blanket placed over the teen, a strange red glow emitted from his clenched right hand. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.